last time.
Oh,
But
that's
I don't know
right.
if you
I haven't had time to because I've had a few things with my mother and
Okay.
stepfather, so I haven't had time to look into it.
Yeah, I
You haven't
didn't.
had time to do your homework?
My dog gave my homework. In other
Yeah,
words,
yeah, it's okay. I didn't have time to do that either.
What
So
were we supposed to do?
I was
we were just
well.
talking about some stuff from last time. Yeah, what was it again?
Flav and I were talking about the the possibility that the Constitution frames our bigger debates.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah, dealing with the binary in the Constitution.
The binary
The
answers
on-off
in the
language
Constitution.
that doesn't really allow for a third party.
I wanted to actually look up the exact passages so I could impart them to the audience. But it is just my assumption after getting a 4-year degree in it.
I would think it's less that the Constitution does it and more that the structure of the part, because at a time these parties didn't exist before the Constitution existed without these parties. And these parties structured themselves around it.
Yeah.
So that's exactly why I favor the Constitution theory, Matt, is because the parties didn't exist without the Constitution. And then the yay or nay nature in the Congress particularly, you can only have two positions. If when a bill is put forward, you either vote it up or vote it down or alter it somehow so that people can again vote it up or vote it down.
Right. Well, there's moratoriums and there's temporary passes. I guess a good question is, what is the Articles of Confederation and how did those work before they were modified into the Constitution?
Yeah, there's yay, there's nay, there's abstain. But we were actually, Matt, talking about a greater, we were talking about the nature of binaries in general, and that people align themselves with good or evil, yes or no, left or right, absolutes, gay or straight, male or female. That there's this false dichotomy in the way that we look at things in general. So, I was asking, and I was asking why we do that as Americans and the Western world. And Raul's theory was that it comes from the Constitution, and I said
at least for Americans.
Yeah, I was saying that's far too narrow because people do it. Kind of out of the gate without much knowledge.
Even a lot of, you're right. A lot of people don't even have any preconceived knowledge or subconscious knowledge of the Constitution. It doesn't even involve in their lives whatsoever from child. Like some people don't even vote in this country, So
yeah, for sure.
That may be something even more underlying.
Yeah. And I think. I think in the Western world, like a lot of people posit that a lot of homophobia and transphobia came from from a Western European centric view, whereas like there were Native Americans have this thing called I don't know if they call it the third spirit or something, but there's a certain name for it.
Well, two-spirited individual.
Oh, two-spirited.
Yeah,
okay, individual.
Two-spirited individual.
Yeah, and then a lot of Eastern Asians have up to like 5 genders in certain places. Maybe like whether it's the Philippines or what have you, and like certain African nations had different ideas surrounding sexuality and gender in general, that it was kind of like the sweeping European mindset that inflicted this rigid binary on folks.
Well, obviously it's Judeo-Christianity that does that, and some Muslim, sects of Muslim that have that's part of their religious teaching, and People have a hard time breaking away from that. And
That's actually a great point. Religious sanctions could be the development of your good, bad binary in general.
Right.
Good and evil.
And it's
like the
monotheism, because when you look at polytheism, you have a lot of mixed characters that in some cases aren't good or bad. They're just chaotically neutral. Loki being a prime example.
Sure.
From mythology, but there's it's an interesting point to bring up there about monotheistic culture and religious sanctions on the binaries.
No, that's a good point. Like even in some of the Eastern Asian, theologies, the idea of a demon is not like what it is here, right? It's not like
exactly.
It's not like just this like negative thing. So yeah, that's a good point. Theology's more the root of it.
Well, I think a lot of people, like, they take what their religion says as like, well, would you stop? You're not funny. Like, they take their religion as an absolute. Like, they're like, either I follow everything or I follow nothing.
Yeah, certainly fundamentalists, for sure.
I would say that is a problem with the fundamentalists in religion more than I would say the majority of people. I don't think the majority of people are fundamentalists. I think that they're a vocal minority.
Mm-hmm.
What would be a solution that we could kind of come up with to approach the religious sanctions of a good bad binary?
I mean, I think society in general is doing that. Is that the society is becoming less fundamental, and it's like religious outlook.
Yeah.
I think for sure people are less religious than they were, and certainly less strict and less fundamental.
I don't know.
What's that?
Unless you ask Trump voters.
Well, even amongst Trump voters, I mean, there's either you change or you die out, and I think that's very much on the minds of many religious thinkers right now.
Yeah, I mean, Trump voters aren't a monolith, and anytime you have a conversation, if you look at a pocket of people and say unless you ask this pocket of people, then you're putting the entire onus of the conversation on like a group of people, and you've kind of already proven the point in some sense by saying it's like this pocket of people is like the outlier, not like the general population.
I mean,
always going to be exceptions.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, yeah, I'm just referring to like the specific like sect within like Trump supporters who seem to think, like the fundamental Christians who seem to think that he's the chosen one.
Well, yeah, exactly. There's specific sects, and the loudest folks in the room often bullguard the conversation for sure, and they often act as if their position, should be
is unassailable.
Center. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But even those folks themselves, for their newfound messiah in Trump and for their newfound religion, I don't think that they're traditionally adhering to fundamentalism as a whole. I mean, I know folks. I mean, my folks are. Especially one of them is a Trump supporter, but he doesn't like go to church every Sunday and follow the fundamentalist teachings of the Bible.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's a situation of like a square is a rectangle, but a rectangle isn't necessarily a square.
What do you mean?
Well, like a lot of fundamentalist Christians are Trump supporters, but not all Trump supporters are fundamentalist Christians.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
same as squares and rectangles.
Yep.
It just it seems oftentimes when we get into the class, race, gender structure, I always end up back with the whole religious sanctioned, politically protected corporate sponsorship issues, and I feel that there's a definite wrench that could be thrown in the gears of the religious sanctions and the corporate sponsorships and the political protections that allow a lapse in judgment to create these kinds of hierarchies and essentially perpetuate these unfounded assumptions, kind of like when you mentioned the monolith assumption of, you know, one group of people being marginalized in a certain way due to extreme fundamentalists, or I could say fanatics. I like throwing that in there every once in a while.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's easier to fight corporations than it is to fight fundamentalist religious mindset, right? Like the problem with like a fundamentalist,
Probably.
yeah, the problem with a fundamentalist mindset is the more you fight them, the more they think they're engaged in like a holy war and they're going to fight you back.
Well, what you're touching on is that the religious faction instead of a corporate faction. The corporate faction, they're only there to make money, so it's easy to quantify and break them off. The religious faction, you don't know their particular motivation. You may know their general motivation, but you don't know their specifics, because it could be extremely varied by every religion.
I mean, even to speak into this a little further, I've attempted to speak to some people about Amazon for a while now. I've had some concerns about the corporate sponsorship with Amazon, and I even was speaking to Raul about it personally, but getting someone to cancel their Prime subscription is very much so like reprogramming a cult member or asking someone to stop supporting a corrupt church. Like, they have like Vatican level influences, and in some ways it's a little sad. I feel like if people even cared about the actual rainforest itself half as much as they care about the fake corporate sponsorship,
the corporation.
You cared about the Amazon instead of the Amazon?
but it's that level of influence, and I feel it's become a religion for some people. I mean, one person asked me, well, how am I supposed to order anything? I was like, there are a lot of right. And then some people who favor a competitive market will say, well, they're just a really good competitor. And then I explain to them a monopoly and how a monopoly works.
Yeah.
And they still deny it. Like, no, they're not a monopoly. And
no, what Amazon was first to market. That's the economic term, meaning that they were there first in sufficient enough size that they were able to basically shoulder off anybody's competitive urges in their space. And their space is massive because they service almost everything. So they are the Sears and Roebuck of the modern digital world. So
that's what I was gonna say. Like, I feel like kids these days, they're never gonna know what a catalog is.
Well, the funny thing is that the catalogs from Sears and Roebuck at the turn of last century, of the 19th century, were the Amazon Prime of that world. You could order everything from a house, and I'm not joking. The structure of a house to like clothing, to food, to everything. So.
Structures of all kinds, not just
all sorts of stuff. It was wild.
Yeah.
So the pattern that Amazon followed is brilliant for itself. That it was so big that it began to eat other sectors and just dominate them utterly. And I have to admire it. I'm sorry, I know that's evil, but I have to admire it.
Well, hey, I mean, that's okay. I admire crack cocaine. So you and I are in the same boat, and of course, there's evidence that they're going to jack their prices up and that they're losing a certain amount of money until they gain a certain percentage of the market.
Yeah.
And honestly, the movie selection's really taking it down, Klein. I can't
Oh, you
find
mean
anything.
for the Amazon Prime?
Yeah.
You can't find nothing to watch on there no more.
You know how bad it is that they send you, they send to your email now, like, hey, look, I'm on Amazon Prime now. Check me out.
Really? Okay. There are a few shows on there that are good, but it's not compared to like a Netflix or like, it's almost as if, oh, you're gonna buy Prime anyway, so here's some movies from the 80s that you'll like.
Yeah.
Well, you know that there is a show called Man in the High Tower, which I
Mike
totally
as well.
recommend.
I mean, it's a good show, but I mean, is it worth it? I don't know.
It's not worth it alone. You're right. You're
No.
absolutely right. But I mean,
Whose mic is
do
low?
have some. They do
There's
have
good
some
shows.
quality
Raul's mic's a
programming.
little low.
Who's?
Just not talking into it.
Am I
Oh,
low?
Raul's. A little.
Hold on.
There's a bunch of mumbling.
Yeah, tonight is weird. Tonight is like a bunch of us. The lighting's a bit different, and the mics are different.
My wife's watching a movie, so I don't want to be down. Like, it's.
Oh no, it's all good. We're actually used to having at least one person in the dark, and like usually it's all the way in the dark. So we're actually doing good tonight as far as ratio.
Yeah.
Not to be completely in the dark.
Yeah. No, you're fine. We can see the reflection off your glasses.
That's always a good thing.
You told the ghost mode people not to come.
You look like some kind of Faustian character that is.
That's right. You're making a deal with the devil.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
dealing with Matt.
Well, here's a deal with something to think about a little bit is the Bernie Sanders deal that it was interesting to listen to, going over the too big to fail, too big to exist idea, which was an attempt to address fast-growing monopolies and create a way for fast-growing monopolies to contribute back to the communities which they depend on. So kind of the idea is a little bit focusing on how, like, when a monopoly grows the way it does, it's taking from somewhere. It's not just making things up out of nowhere. So the whole concept of Jeff Bezos having the 113 billion and then making, now an extra 70 something billion on top of it, despite the, shutdowns with other businesses that have been lost, there's got to be a way to explain where, the consumers that are taking from the market of Amazon are now suffering from communal depreciation or really a financial attack on their own communities. So if Amazon wants to keep their consumer base, they almost have to kind of see this mutual relationship between producers and consumers and have a little bit of a give back program, maybe even a customer loyalty program.
Well, now it sounds like my biology class, producers and consumers.
Well, Henry Ford saw this problem years ago, right? He said, if I don't pay my guys enough to work at my factories, then buy my cars, who's going to buy my cars?
Mm-hmm.
And he correctly identified that you have to pay people a substantial wage of whatever you're charging in your business to sustain it, or else it will not be sustainable. And I think that's, to be honest, I think that's where Amazon can change, when the other big giants that we talk about, like Walmart or Target, they'll never change. They're always going to pay people bottom dollar, raking the barrel stuff. At least Amazon's willing to negotiate their prices of employment, and they're a little better than average. They are low, but they're a little better than average. I sound like a shill, but I just want to tell the truth.
And how much are they giving you? How much are they giving you to?
They're giving me free Amazon Prime.
Okay. I guess.
I'm kidding, guys, kidding.
We know.
I mean, even thinking about the influence and dependence on the rate of consumption, even if we look at like the marginal propensity of consumption and how like it's more valuable to have money in the hands of consumers than it is to have in the hands of investors who may even put that money offshore or invest it in a special interest outside of the family interests that are supporting the market.
Yep.
We might want to consider that there's got to be a way to tell this story through the eyes of an economic hero who's willing to represent the unrepresented structure in our class, where we might define what was once a middle class has now been broken up into a working class, a fighting class, and in some cases, those who are losing their class altogether, entering, new level of being poor and desperate, we could say, desperation where we're willing to sell ourselves short.
Or the I don't get paid nearly enough to deal with this shit class.
Right.
Speaking of class, what do folks think about some of the backlash that AOC's gotten from folks on the left for backing Biden?
It's not fair. This is like for people to be dissing her. Like, we're in a bad situation right now.
Yeah.
And I think like it's like, look, for a lot of people, Biden wasn't their first choice. Biden wasn't my first choice, but
here's the way I look at it. Even like, I can't stand Joe Biden. Don't get me wrong. Like, but like I cannot. There has to be some. You have to a point where you say, all right, this is my only option.
Yeah.
Yeah, enough is enough.
Yeah, I find it unrealistic to expect that someone who's in the House of Representatives is going to sit idly by and kind of hold their nose and be like, fuck Joe Biden.
I think it's a lot more a younger idea. Like, oh my God, I didn't get my guy, so I just want to fuck it.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. Some of the messages. Some of the messages I've gotten aren't from super young people, maybe people a little bit younger than me, but it's I've
Isn't that everybody, Flav?
Yes, that is most people. But I've been a little bit surprised because it's like, listen, this person is like on the national stage, and like even though they came in as a socialist and this and that, like, we still have a strategy here. Like, we still have a national strategy. We still want to win. AOC's still, supporting Bernie, but it's like, yeah, of course, it's like we're going to rally the troops and we're going to throw our support behind the person we want to win. And then when they get in there, I mean, we're already holding his feet to the fire with the Green New Deal and all this other stuff. So it's not like, she's just relenting and becoming a cheerleader or something. I just find it a bit unrealistic. And
it's
like,
childish. It's childish is what you're looking for, I think.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far. I mean, I just think that it's unrealistic to expect a politician of her stature not to throw her support, behind this person. Like at this point, it is kind of a binary. There's like two choices. Now, of course, if you live in New York, we know Biden's going to win this state, so we can vote third party if we want to make a point.
I'm just constantly scared that like he won't win New York.
That will never happen. There's no way. There's just too many Democrats in New York.
Yeah.
But
not just in New York City, but just like in New York in general, like throughout all, the West, the upper.
I don't know about that. Like, I feel like a lot of upstate is Trump country, and I get scared by that.
Yeah, but there's places like Ithaca and Utica and,
New Paltz.
Yeah, there's lots
How was Buffalo, Flav?
Rosendale.
Oh, yeah, that's where I live. So that's
Buffalo's a blue. Buffalo's
There's
Silver
no
City.
way Buffalo goes red. There's no
Yeah.
way.
Something that when I was conversing with a few people with opposing views, they found Biden a bit threatening, and it was because he has a very strong anti-gun policy, but not that he has a strong anti-gun policy so much as he just doesn't know anything about guns, to the point where he was referring to an AR-15 as an AR-14. And there's this whole video of him arguing with a union worker, nonetheless, about gun rights. And Biden gets pretty aggressive in this video, and about something that he's misidentifying. So
That's very surprising for Biden to get aggressive like that.
I know. Yeah, I'll send you the link to the video. It was easy.
No, I'm totally kidding. I'm totally kidding. He has gotten really aggressive with citizens who came to speak with him on issues. There's one guy, I don't remember, Matt, if you remember, if he was a construction worker or something. He's asking about Biden's policies. And
are we talking about back in when he was running with Obama?
No, it wasn't that long ago. No, it was this cycle.
You're talking recently.
He says something like, he tells the guy to like shut the fuck up or something like that.
He asked the guy to step outside.
I know what you're talking about. I'm trying to remember what that was about. It was really stupid, and I was just like, this guy is unhinged.
Yeah, and he was putting his finger like in his face, like I thought they were going to get into I thought they were going to get into a fist fight. Like, this guy is.
If only I had the luxury of being able to tell people to go fuck themselves.
Well, you can. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing stopping you.
Yeah.
You might get fired.
I can, but I shouldn't.
You might get fired depending on where you are. You might, but nobody's stopping you.
Yeah, it's incredible though. It's like, wow, he's running for office right now.
Well,
but it's like
the point being is that Biden is nobody's dream team at all.
Right.
But the look at what we have to compare that to. It's either somebody that we can actually hold accountable, which is different than the last 4 years, or this dictator in training with training wheels on them.
Right.
Oh, I feel like the wheels are coming off.
Yeah. Well, they're coming off out of desperation.
Right. Trump is evolving. There's no doubt about that.
Well, devolving.
This isn't Pokemon or anything, but we can see there's something happening. But like the thing
He's a Bulbasaur.
It's the problem, and I don't know how to speak to it when I'm dealing with these opposing views, is when the very obvious factor, like we discussed in the first episode that I jumped on with you and Ish, was Biden is out of touch, and he's had over 28 odd years of being a part of this political system. For him to be so out of touch makes it hard to represent his policy. Even one guy pointed out to me, he said, you know what, it's okay to get passionate. It's okay for him to get like, yeah, I'm going to take guns away, whatever. But he was picking a fight with a union guy who was clearly going to kick his ass. So,
you're talking about the same video I'm talking about?
Right.
Yeah, that was another video I saw. Right. He said he wanted to take the guy outside. And the point is he just exercised bad judgment. It's just bad.
You need yeah.
I mean, so here's the thing. Like, here's the thing that's not a good look about that. When we compare how 45 can't really put his words or sentences together or make coherent thoughts, as I'm like tripping over my own words. When we compare him to Biden, that's an interesting comparison. When we compare Biden to 45, that's an interesting comparison. But the difference is 45 doesn't fly off the handle and challenge to like beat people up outside. So
are we sure?
Well, I think that's because 45 is inherently a coward. And I have always felt like this. I feel that he picks on people that have no defense against him. Sure. And he picks on 16-year-old girls that oppose him on environmental issues. He picks on journalists that are crippled, literally crippled. Yeah. So I mean, he is a coward. He is the classic definition of a coward. He would run he plays the big tough guy, but he's not the big tough guy.
Yeah.
Well, didn't he run already? Like during some of the uprisings, didn't he? Like
Yeah, he ran
run
and hid in the bunker. He's the only standing president. Well, the only president who's ever done it, obviously, because the bunker didn't exist before. Like it only existed after World War II. I think it's like 46 or whatever.
And how long did he have like snacks in that bunker? Like how long was he
Of
in there?
course.
He knows, probably watching Fox News or
Yeah, probably.
And did he bring like his wife or kids into the bunker with him? Or
No, of course not.
it was just like
Why would they
45
matter?
Gotta let
Why would they
Melania
matter,
burn.
Flav?
My father. He's a true hero.
Yeah. I mean, during the pandemic in general, I heard a lot of corporate executives even, talk about corporate sponsorship. A lot of people went into their little hidey holes, and even out on their boats where they felt it was
Yeah,
safer.
but he's the president.
The guy who owned the building I was working in specifically, the owner and the superintendent, they all disappeared. Went to their little safe place. At a point where I even noted, listen, you guys, we basically own this place. There's nobody here telling us we have to do anything one way or the other. And we might want to look out for our family's best interests and maybe call it early, take an hour or two to help with the commute. And I was met with a lot of resistance from people who had a hard time explaining to me why, and even a hard time explaining what was even happening in the world. So it was an interesting time to see. I mean, you can't, justify that. It's cowardice, like you're saying before.
Because I don't think he went in there because of the pandemic. He went in there because of the protests.
Protests, right.
Yeah, and he did not go in there because of the
subject.
pandemic.
It had nothing to do. He's not. He supposedly is not afraid of it. It's.
I don't think he understands what's happening.
I don't think he does either.
Right.
200,000 people have died, and he's clueless. Give me a break. You don't even have to be clueless. You have to know that something horrible is happening to the country.
Yeah, well, to the world too. I mean,
to the world as well.
Yeah.
But specifically, Mr. America First should be more concerned about what's happening to us, and he's not. He could care less.
Yeah.
Well,
Even
he's
his own
so
followers,
narcissistic.
he just doesn't care.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to see the full Obama speech, but I definitely,
Oh, it was
Obama stuck it to him.
preacher Obama at his best. He was railing.
It was Jeremiah Wright Obama.
Yeah, he was not happy at all.
Actually, I think I was impressed by Kamala's speech.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, what was she talking about?
Just about for a while about the typical my upbringing has made me what I am today,
Okay.
yada yada, but
Uh-huh.
but also she was saying this president is dangerous because all these people are dying under his watch and he doesn't seem to give a shit.
Yeah.
And then I think that what I appreciated about his speech, or about Kamala's speech, her speech, was the fact that she explicitly made it a point to address education,
Mhm.
because she was the only person all week who said, basically, at this point, we as educators are stuck choosing between our health versus properly doing our jobs, because nobody, teacher, parent, student, God himself, thinks that remote learning is working. You can't teach on Zoom. You just can't. What am I gonna do? Go to all these kids' houses and grab their hands and put them on the mouse and make them log in to do their work? That's not gonna that's not gonna happen.
I think what it really comes down to is the amount that would be spent if the kids were brought into the school is extraordinary.
Well, it has to do with the amount of money the amount of money that would be spent on PPE. Like,
right, exactly. It'd be like so absurd. We don't even want to fund education in the first place.
Right.
So like, there's no way.
well, and that's where the arguing is that, like, back and forth, is that teachers don't want to go back in
They don't feel safe.
unless there's appropriate PPE.
And you think 7-year-olds are going to be wearing those things? You think they're not going to be touching each
No.
other?
They're not going to. So there's a reason why I don't teach elementary school. Like,
I feel like we should be getting. I feel like we should be getting these video game designers to design some good, like, edutainment for the kids to, like, learn and feel entertained at the same time.
Personally, my son loves it. He thinks it's the greatest thing ever. He's like, it's cool. I don't know how much he's really learning, which is really the problem.
Yeah.
I mean, this asks for more family values to step in, like learn from the teacher how to teach your kids. So it's like kind of a painstakingly annoying thing. But
yeah, but that's not gonna happen with my students.
I don't have time to be. I mean, I'm gonna have to make the time.
Make time, yeah. I know it's a weird thing to think about, but imagine a better world possibly could come from that.
But they can't. They're not going to be able.
I don't think that has anything to do with family values. There's a quality and a level of education that should come from the home, but asking teachers to teach parents so that parents can teach kids adds a step to the process. It doesn't make it easier. It makes it more difficult.
Well, I was thinking more like you would watch the class with the kid and you would actually participate, like, with the lesson. They might miss something on the screen that you as a parent caught, and you could talk to your kid about it more later.
I mean, essentially, it's like asking parents to go back to school.
Yes, yeah.
Right. That only works if the parents aren't having to go to work to make money themselves. Like, a lot of the parents of my students are essential workers, like, and they've left the 18-year-old kid in charge of the home.
I do agree with your point, Damien, on family values, but I think that comes from and is lost on the fact that in a lot of cases, there just isn't the normal education that should be taking place in the home, just isn't happening anymore. That's something that needs to be readdressed and looked at for sure. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I'm thinking kind of idealistically for sure. There's a hint of idealism in there, but yeah, it would be interesting to approach some idea for that. It's good hearing from people who have kids too. I don't have a kid, so that's where some of my idealism is kind of flourishing.
Enjoy your time. Enjoy this time. I love my son, but pain in my head, damn.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how valuable the type of education that comes, from the home until I raised my kid. My mom educated me at home, and she wasn't a teacher. So what she did was, and I was just telling somebody this recently, every room in my house for as long as I can remember had books in it. I mean, the bathroom, every single room in the house, everywhere I went in my home, there was always a bookshelf or books accessible. And that's the way that I raised my daughter. I was actually recently, I think it might've been Mike. I was telling somebody recently, I remember a friend of mine, when she had her daughter, she was newborn, and I got her like 20 Dr. Seuss books, and she's like, it's a newborn baby, she can't read. And I'm like, just put them on her shelf.
But it's for later.
Just make sure they're accessible. Because one of the things that I used to do when I was a kid is I'd always find myself pulling these books off the shelf, Malcolm X Speaks, the Little Red Book, that I couldn't read. But I'd like, one day I'm going to be able to read these books. You know what I mean? One day I'm going to be able to read these books. And that's how I rate my daughter's 25, and she was double accelerated in everything on every level in school. And it was just because it's something one of the things that Joe Biden said some years ago, kids have an advantage the more words that they're exposed to.
I also feel, I'm sorry, I'm eating, so I'm folks. So
you don't want us to look at you eating?
I don't want us to look at me while I'm chomping down. That's kind of
okay.
rude.
It's okay. We just went through the highest ratio of people not in dark mode that we've ever been through. So it's okay. We're back to normal ratios.
So, so the thing about education and books is that my mother was not a highly educated woman. Coming from Cuba, her education was interrupted by the revolution. So, but my mother realized that books were the way that I was going to accelerate. And so every Saturday she would take me to the library, and we would check out 20 books.
Go on.
So and that was my place to be safe, to explore new concepts. Everything I am is because of my mother shaping me in those early years with the books and the libraries.
We're very, very similar in that capacity. My mom every Saturday took me and my sister to the library. We signed out like 20 books. We signed out records. We watched, it was like a program at the library, so we watched like movies and stuff, and we had library cards and an album, a record. We had like So again, I second everything Raul was saying. Like that's really, really important in the learning process, and at as young as possible, right? Like I remember my mom. She taught, I knew how to read by the time when I was going to school, and I was always at a higher reading level, but I knew how because my mother, she'd read us bedtime stories, but then she'd read us the same 4 or 5 stories regularly so that you get like rote memory. So then she'd make us read them back to her. And it wasn't that we could actually read them. We just kind of remembered how the story went, and we were able to associate those words, that we saw on the page.
Really
right. Right.
It's just memorizing the words so that you know what they mean. I mean, that's all it really is.
I mean, I basically practically taught myself to read, because a lot of what I had around me as a kid was books. Literally, my parents have told me that when I was a year old, my favorite toy was a book. I didn't even want to play with the toys that they had bought.
Okay, I'm going back into darkness now.
Wait, what do you mean? You already
You've
were
been
in
dark this whole time.
No, I mean complete darkness, ninja mode, mute.
Mutes. Okay. That is part of it. That is a level of darkness I have not achieved in a while. You're going so dark that you won't even be able to hear me. That's pretty dark.
You're like Liam Neeson in. Never mind. That's a bad joke.
No, he didn't mean he was going to mute you. He meant he was going to mute himself, but he just had to jump in on this topic.
We got it. That was Ish, by the way. Matt, he is the creator.
Right. I've seen it. I've heard him on a couple other videos, so I do.
Oh yeah. You may have even
Matt?
seen his face every once in a while. But he's a man of mystery.
What?
He's a man of mystery.
He's a man of mystery. I like to consider myself a man of mystery most of the time, but.
Well, yeah, you're semi dark mode as well.
Okay.
A man of mystery and mayhem and controversy. He is Ish, aka Issue X.
So who's all in today? I hear Raul, Matt, Emily, Mike, Flay.
Yep, that is, and Damien.
Oh, and Damien.
Yep.
What up, Damien?
Hey, brother.
Introduction. So Matt Brown is my good friend. Ish, by the way, he's another Buffalonian. You guys are in the same city. Also, other interests that you have. Matt is another big comic book guy.
I've seen that. I've seen it. It makes me jealous, some of the stuff he's picking up, though. So I gotta be honest with you.
How do you know, man?
Well, because you share it on Comic Sense.
Oh, you're on Comic Sense?
You're probably picking them up from Queen City or somewhere.
No, I don't go to emo. I don't go see emo anymore. I used to. I grew up going to seeing emo.
Where do you go then?
At Queen City. I grew up on. I know him quite well, but no, I usually go to.
Where do you go now, though, to get
Gutter Pop, Collector's Inn.
Oh, cool.
Well, I kind of help out at Gutter Pop.
I like Collector's Inn, though, too.
Yeah, Joe and Justin Justin's real cool. Joe's cool.
Right.
Cool.
I used to play some Magic the Gathering there back in the day.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'm like,
hey, man. Before we go further, I just want to thank you and tell you I appreciate you for being a part of Comic Sense, man.
Oh, no problem, man. That's a very cool page there that you guys run there. I like a lot of stuff, a lot of the content and stuff. And it's good. For me, growing up, every like my uncle got me into comics, and like when I was young, I was the only kid that was reading them. Like maybe one or two of my friends, and like it was real. But now I have like a real like it's a different feeling because you get like I think the internet did that. You know, it gave like nerddom, geekdom.
It's cool to be a nerd now.
Right. When I was young, it was the word. Like you would hide it from people. You would go play Magic early in the morning. Make nobody else see you. And people would ask you what you're playing on the card game.
Yeah, or like you'd hide.
We're worshiping Satan. Leave us alone.
Right.
No, I'm busy practicing witchcraft and becoming a lesbian.
That's what people would assume. They would instantly assume it was some strange divination or something going on.
Right, like if you played Dungeons and Dragons or Magic the Gathering or.
Oh yeah, now you're talking about my lane. I was really a gamer above everything else.
By the way, Matt is also the creator of the phrase "Let's get serious."
Yes.
Cool.
So Matt comes from the canvassing. Matt was a great canvasser.
You got a celebrity in the building.
Yeah, with
right.
CCE.
When I canvassed, I had a style of canvassing that was, it was kind of like really assertive in a way that
Definitely.
I almost used magic on people. Like, and you might not believe me, but there were certain phrases I would say them, and "Let's get serious" was one of those phrases that I would just instantly say to somebody, and they would just like look at me, like it would always bring their attention back to what I was talking about, no matter what you were about to say, no matter what we were talking, because people always, when you're canvassing, I don't know if anybody else has ever done this.
A bunch of us here, Matt. Yeah.
Right.
Emily,
so
Damien.
You run into people that just want to waste your time, just want to keep.
They want to hold you up so you don't go to other people's houses.
Yeah.
Right. So I came up with these phrases, and the greatest, "Let's get serious" was probably the greatest one of all time. And I would just like, "Let's get serious now." Or I'd say something like, "All your neighbors are doing this," or I'm trying to think of some other ones that I would say. At one point, I said to people, "Get your checkbooks," and they would literally walk off and get the damn checkbook.
Yeah.
Dude,
I did it. I don't know if I did it in front of Mike, but I did it in front of Andy. And
yeah.
they didn't want to believe that I was doing this. I was just like, I just say to them.
Well, Matt, the thing that you did there, we have 3 canvassers on this call, and then Raul also has been in the political world for a long time, so he knows what's up with canvassing as well.
I wish Cynthia was here, because Cynthia used to say some on-PC stuff at doors. But
the thing that you really tapped into with those kind of phrases has been the kind of marketing ideas and the "let's get to it" and the phrases and the charisma that the Democratic Party has been missing.
Right.
So, as canvassers, we knew how to.
For them,
Well, we knew how to condense a message.
Before Barack got elected, and they stole all my grassroots. They literally were like following. Like, I worked in Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Miami, with the Rust Belt, with Kurt Wadsworth was the canvas director at the time, and like honestly, I didn't like it because I didn't like John Kerry. But it was the same kind of situation we have now. Like, we have Joe Biden, nobody wants, or a lot of people don't like him. I didn't like John Kerry, but it was like, George Bush, come on.
Yeah.
So and now I think it's a worse problem.
So for the uninformed, which would be me, can you guys, for everyone who may eventually be listening, can you break down and explain what canvassing is?
Sure. Canvassing is the art of going door to door with a message that is usually political, environmental, or in the realm of consumer advocacy. And it's basically, it's organizing a neighborhood behind a message, getting them to do things like call their local elected officials, sign statements of support, and or petitions, help out with fundraising, contributions, write letters, things like that. So it's, the money's a big part of it, because you can establish a good amount of fundraising for an organization, but the human to human touch and the one-on-one conversations that you have in like 3 to 5 or 7 minutes can be enough to make someone aware of an issue, aware of like how to get involved and take action, and it can create like a base of members that will remember you next time, support you whenever you need to get things done. And it's a good way to kind of like rally support in a neighborhood and like activate a bunch of people and keep them active and use that power base to get things done.
On that a little bit.
Is the goal to get money?
Well,
that's one of the goals.
To know here. And canvassing starts off as literally using canvas paper to go between some of the new forming colonies to get public opinion. And what canvassing really is about is the solicitation of opinion, and to develop mobilization technology. And we want to mobilize an entire community or an entire movement, and we use the art of canvassing to do that. And canvassing has evolved into organizing letters, fundraising, and support statements. The fundraising is important because it cuts overhead at the door, because you've already paid to bring a public educator to a door to not only educate you on a subject that you may be unaware of, but to also teach you how to take action with support statements, and I like to say most importantly, letters. And letters end up being ammunition in these lobbies to fight against corporate sponsorship and fight against some of the political protections and religious sanctions that do affect our environment, but also some of our everyday lives, dealing with communal equity issues, and even in some cases encroaching on some family values. So I think it's important when we say is the money, is it important? I could say the money is significant, and it's important because it affects more than just us. And that's why when we take something like significance and importance and we bring these words together that sound like semantics, we can kind of paint a picture for someone at the door where, yes, your dinner is significant, and this is the time of day where your whole family's home. But what's really important is for us to get the letters and fundraising together with your family. Everyone can do a letter, everybody at the dinner table can contribute, and these 5 to 7 minutes could ripple out to change years and years of solutions for problems that you might not have been aware of. And I just stress that beginning part, the solicitation of opinion, because it was more important that we were able to share opinions with people door to door than it was for us to do anything else. Those opinions have changed people's lives. I've had other friends who have visited people who have canvassed and remembered the interaction, and that memory led them to greater support in the future, as opposed to me maybe of just saying, hey, listen, just give me $10, I'll go away, or just make the $100 donation, and maybe we'll see you next year. But spending the time talking to the husband and the wife and teaching the kids how to draw the picture. There were some houses I spent 20, 30 minutes at, I'll be honest. I spent a lot of time with some people, and that did impact some of my end of the day results.
Sometimes you need that. The job would be incredibly dull, and I probably wouldn't have done it if there were not for those few people that either brought me. Like, I know it's not the thing you're supposed to do, but there were plenty of times that I was just like, I need a break. I need to just, like, hey, you're having a rough night, and that connection will drive you through the rest of the evening.
Well, sometimes you just got to read the room too, because like you could be more successful talking to one person who's really, really, really on board for 20 minutes than knocking on like 10 doors within those 20 minutes and nobody's home anyways.
Yeah, for certain it's it's definitely like those people will recharge you, and like Matt said, you want to break the monotony sometimes. And sometimes even if those 10 people are home and you're just giving like the same shitty rap to like 10 people.
No, like, I'll tell you what sucks balls though is being a canvasser on a street behind a FiOS salesman and a Mormon.
Oh no!
Ringing all the doorbells in front of you.
Yeah.
Like that was beyond not pleasant. They were pretty pissed at me at the time.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I got there.
How's that, Ish? Does that paint a good picture?
Yeah, it tells me that I couldn't do it because I just want your money.
Well, the greatest canvassing we ever did, well, I personally, and Mike did it with me, and a couple of our other friends did it, was the East Side Pride. This was back 2003. Was it 2003 or
something
4?
like that.
I can't remember.
Something like one of those.
And like a lot of people weren't registered to vote then, so that's all we did. We just went out and canvassed people and got them get them, at least tell them that.
Yeah, there was no fundraising in that canvassing. We were just volunteers.
The most joy that I have ever had canvassing.
It was great. Yeah, because we were going to like communities that were kind of like disillusioned. They were disillusioned, and you know, a lot of people have been fucked over by the system, and we were
not the wealthy people that you normally go and canvass, and like you felt like you were actually making a difference, or doing something at least.
But wasn't there I feel like Flav, there was one time you were talking about down here for CCE, you canvassing or maybe it was with working families, you canvassing the NYCHA developments.
Oh, well, yeah, for working families, but that wasn't for fundraising. We were.
But yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's the same. It sounds like it's the same kind of thing.
Yeah, we were collecting petitions and we were. I think we weren't registering people because we had already had a lot of people that were registered, but we had done different layers of canvassing. So we had registered a bunch of people before, and now we are coming back to get folks to sign, petitions so that we could put our policy, so our policy could.
Because I just remember you complaining about the smell of the elevators in the NYCHA buildings.
Yeah, well, some of those buildings are pretty rough. I mean, a lot of it's the way the city doesn't take care of them.
They don't take care of them.
And then I think there's just a level of, I don't know.
There's a level of disrespect from the city for the people who live in them, and it's
right, and it's if you live there and other people are not treating your place very well, it's hard for you to change that or reverse that. So it kind of adds on. I remember one person being in a building with me saying that he could smell rodent droppings or whatever. I was just that obviously creeped me out.
Well, I remember one of my friends, she had a newborn baby, and the crib was next to the window. She was living in a project building.
About those New York City rats, Mike.
Yeah, right.
No,
my friend had a newborn baby right next to the window, living in a NYCHA building, and she would complain all the time because apparently the people under her were actually smoking crack in their apartment, and it was coming up into the bedroom with the baby.
Right. Yeah, that's fucked up. That's fucked up. But yeah, we did a lot of those buildings, and those buildings are highly populated, very dense, highly democratic buildings. So, if we were going for working families, if you were lucky, you might have a handful of people in the same building who were registered working families, which is very rare because most people are obviously Democrats or Republicans. And if we were working on a Democratic ticket, then that's pretty easy. We can just get as many.
Yeah, that would be everybody.
Right. Yeah, that would be everyone.
Well, I remember the New York Times did one of their interactives after the 2016 election, talking about you could click on your zip code or you could click on your election district and see the election totals for your precinct.
Yes.
And I remember getting a huge kick out of the fact that when I clicked on my election precinct, there were literally more votes for Jill Stein than there had been for Trump. There were literally something like 13 votes for Trump in our district. And
well, yeah, I mean, I think this goes back to saying I wouldn't fear Trump winning New York State. I really wouldn't fear.
Absolutely no way.
Based on history.
I think
based on last time anyway.
I mean, I think I have a lot more exposure maybe than like the average person to the rural parts of the state. So like it might be like more ingrained in my head to create a worry.
Yeah, well, I mean, me and Matt have like run all through the rural parts of New York, like canvassing.
90% of the like we canvassed all everywhere, almost to 2 miles. Wait, no, not 2 miles from Syracuse, but pretty close to Syracuse. So I'd say half the state, maybe. Okay, I wouldn't say canvass 9, maybe 80% of it.
But did you go east of Syracuse?
No, well, that was a different office, right?
Yeah, I mean, we would cover an hour and a half radius outside of
Milton
Buffalo
County or Monroe County. Monroe County.
Yeah, Monroe's Rochester.
Milton, for some reason.
Yeah, there's plenty of rural stuff, for sure. But no, I mean, I get you. There's definitely more red than most people realize. But you are right.
Especially. You are right though too about like blue dots in the middle of like small blue areas in the middle of all that red.
Well, a lot of them are college.
Exactly. Towns. Like, I'm pretty like I think Hillary actually like my dad did the counting, or he was certified the results. I think Hillary actually won like their precinct. Mm-hmm. But again, college town.
Right. Well, Ithaca and Utica are both are big. They go blue because there's a lot of young college kids that go there and have more of a like, and they're usually college kids that don't your Republican college, they're going to go to a different school. It's just not the school for them.
I mean, a lot of students I think don't necessarily register to vote though from their college addresses, and at least from what I could gather, like in the colleges around Utica, like because it's not a swing state.
It's a possibility. It might not have been like that, when I was younger. I mean, it wasn't. I guess New York never was a swing state, so I don't know.
I mean, that's true. I feel like the last time that New York voted for a Republican was like the year I was born. So
yeah, I mean, Trump received 36% of the vote to Hillary's 59% in New York, and and Hillary had some folks that were ardently against her. So unless Trump finds a way to be wildly more
but he wouldn't mess with. Well, but I think also you probably got a point like that. On top of that, like a lot of New York, like we're familiar with him. We know he was a freaking con artist from Jump Street.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, that certainly is probably even more known now. Hopefully,
he tried to buy the Bills, and he said he was going to move them out of town. So, he ain't getting no votes here.
When was that?
That was like when went like Ralph Wilson
right before Golisano bought them.
Oh yeah.
Wait, what? Trump wanted to buy the Bills?
Yeah, Trump and Bon Jovi wanted to buy them, and they're both going to move them out of town supposedly. And everybody stopped playing Bon Jovi music here for like an entire year. The type of town we live in.
That must have been good for the what's the band that came out of Buffalo?
Oh, what? Oh, Goo Goo Dolls?
Yeah, it must have been good for the Goo Goo Dolls.
Yeah, I guess it's good for them. Maybe Goldfinger too. They're from here, I think, the drummer at least.
Why would it be good for the Goo Goo Dolls?
I don't know.
People not listening to that much Bon Jovi, maybe getting their kicks from the Goo Goo Dolls.
I don't think they're comparable.
Yeah,
they're not.
You got to get your kicks from somewhere.
You got to get your kicks from somebody with frosted tips.
I like Bon Jovi.
I think more people were more mad that he was planning on taking him out of here. Not so much that his music's bad or anything. I had a Bon Jovi T-shirt when I was young.
The Trump effect that we're talking about is kind of funny. He did that with another person's song too. I think was it Neil Diamond or it was
Neil Young.
Neil Young. Okay, there we go.
Yeah, you don't want him playing them.
Wait, no. There's literally like over 20 artists who had a backlash against Trump.
And they've sent him like cease and desist orders.
Yeah, for using his music without permission. Like 20 different artists.
And that's the legal process to cease and desist.
Has anybody seen the list of the speakers for the RNC?
Yeah, speaking of listless losers,
you can't even make a joke about it. It's hilarious.
My Pillow Guy and Kid Rock. Boy.
Now.
And don't forget the couple with the guns from St. Louis.
Right. Here's the other thing.
I like Kid Rock too.
About that list.
I liked his music.
Not one seated Republican. Not one congressional Republican. No senators. No Ted Cruz's. No Matt Gaetz. Nobody will speak for him.
Yeah, and that's telling you something.
Well, is that the first time in history, actually?
I think it is. Like, I mean, you got to look at it this way. Nobody wants to stick their neck out for this guy.
Well, they see a sinking ship and they're rats.
That's a clue that the party is like he's only their guy because he's their guy. There's for no other reason.
Yeah.
It's interesting you say they see a sinking ship, because then I wonder then, why is everyone so concerned? If we see a sinking ship, then shouldn't it be like a shoe in the bag kind of thing?
Because his ass is going to cheat.
So the problem is that's the same thought process that got him elected.
Right.
And that too, people were too complacent the last time because they thought, oh, there's no way in hell this guy's going to win. Like, it seemed like a done deal.
I don't think that can happen. I don't think that's...
And I hope people learned from that experience, quite frankly.
I was thinking, too, there was someone talking... So I mentioned, like, the Trump effect and how, like, when he's said to do something, people do the opposite. They're like, oh, no way, I'm not doing that. And then there's, like, the fanatics on the other side that, like, drank or ate the, like, fish tank chemical and died. There's like this weird polarizing effect Trump has, and even just the Voldemort effect with the not saying his name, he who shall not be named, or more popularly 45.
I've more often than not said its name. I often choose to say 45.
I don't think I've ever said 45.
I actually really like the term 45 as a name, but I think that it's important to say Trump so we face the reality. Like, this is...
Yeah, I say Trump. He's the president. Yeah. Like, he is the president. We can't, by not saying President Trump, it doesn't make him any less the president. I know people were on that whole not my president, like, okay, well, he is your president.
We went through that years ago. It never worked then. I used to wear the T-shirt. It didn't work then.
Yeah, I mean, listen, like, if Hitler was the president, I wouldn't be going around saying President Hitler.
But he's still your president.
Yeah,
it doesn't make my point is it just doesn't make him any less your president.
I don't think I'm gonna sleep good
tonight. It doesn't mean I'm gonna bow down to the guy and give him any more reverence than he deserves.
But again, my point ultimately was just it doesn't make him any less your president.
Yeah.
That was all. That was the only point I was making, because I thought that whole "not my president" movement was just like, come on, he's still your president. He is your president.
Yeah, and you'll be giving the idea more power by creating a sacred nature around that he who shall not be named. That's what I was saying with the Voldemort effect. And this could be adding to some of like what the Trump effect really is, and how like his like effortless campaigning methods have been so effective on some people, where I was challenged at one point to find good content with Biden in it. One of my friends who has a few opposing views was sharing some oppositional views on some Trump campaign ads. And I have to admit, some of them were very comedic. They were very funny. And they were just done by some random person, not even a campaign manager or anybody. So I
saw one today that was hilarious.
Yeah,
I've seen. I don't want to mention the one I seen, but I almost peed my pants. So
the one that I saw was him like messing up his the one where he's talking about his hairy legs.
Oh, corn pop.
I didn't see the words corn pop, but the hairy legs were mentioned, and it was just a hilarious. He's talking in front of some young black girls, and he's just goes on this whole thing about his hairy legs and how they would rub his blonde hairy legs. They get burnt in the sun, and someone posted it because I was posting, Trump kind of flubbing and messing up left and right because there was a stupid meme about how Biden would do the same. So I was just kind of like showing that, and then they hit me with the hairy legs, and I was like, that's hilarious, The funny thing is, like, these people who are so for Trump, they think that you're like, they think they know you, right? So they think first of all, they think you love Biden, right? Like as soon as you criticize Trump, they're like, oh well, Biden is this and that, and Biden, and they're like, and the Democrats, and it's like, listen,
or the libtards. That's a big one too.
Yeah, I was like, listen, like, I actually feel comfortable criticizing people I even eventually vote for. Like, you can't say the same. Like,
but I mean, that's been the general, almost an underlying theme for as long as we've been doing the show. At least it always comes back to that, right? Like, and it's interesting that you mentioned that, because that's from, you find that on both sides of the fence though, right? Like nobody can really scrutinize themselves or accept criticism without throwing up the opposing, the opposition.
Yeah,
like liberals can't do it either. They can't not bring up Trump when they're making an argument on behalf of liberalism.
Yeah, that wasn't exactly my point though. My point was there's
I know what you're saying.
Yeah, my point is just the lack of the lack of being able to criticize someone, even if you're going to vote for them, right?
Right.
Like their side is like they're so like entrenched in loving Trump that any criticism of him is an attack on them. So then they've got to attack you, and it's
right.
like you're not attacking me. Like you're not attacking me by attacking Biden. I actually think it's funny. Like,
yeah, but you're an exception to a rule, because most people fall into the trap and go into the argument.
Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of people who aren't excited about Biden, so may not fall into that trap, but definitely point taken.
Well, most people aren't just saying, I'm not excited about Biden, you're right.
Right.
They're arguing about why Trump is so bad and blah, 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 blah.
Sure, I get that.
No, I fall into that trap a lot online, like arguing with Trump trolls online.
Yeah, they're good. They're good at
They're real good at it.
They're good at their job.
I don't argue with them.
But that's why,
there's
like, me
no
laughing. That's
I
why
just make it
laughing,
clear when I criticize Biden that I don't agree with your positions on Trump.
Right. Well, that's why, like, me laughing along with them and saying, this is funny, like, that's gonna, like, take some of their, gonna deflate them a little bit.
See, but think about it. I'm a baby. I'm a child. I don't have impulse control yet. Maybe in a few years I will. Not to argue with these people.
Yeah, you shouldn't argue.
Getting up there, Emily. How old are you?
You shouldn't argue with these type of people, Emily.
You're old enough to run for president.
Yeah. Emily Predmore for president.
I'm old enough to run for president. I'm old enough to run for president, but just making fun of the fact that I'm the baby.
Noted.
Yeah, noted. You're the...
Although I don't think I'm the baby in this group, actually.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. You might be in the center. You might be smack dab in the center. Let's do actually, you might skew towards the bottom, actually, now that I think about it. Let's do a roll call. Wait, let me see if I can guess. So you're 35. Damien, are you like 33?
Actually, I just turned 31. Close.
31. Okay. Matt
Good
is.
guess.
Matt is 38.
39.
39. Okay.
Yeah,
And then
good guess,
Raul is 44.
43. 43. 44 next month.
Don't add.
And then Ish is 45.
Damn,
correct?
Ish.
That makes me feel young.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm the second youngest.
I'm 42. I'm going to be 43 next month. So yeah, you're the second youngest. Yeah.
And I'm the second oldest. I'm older than Flav. That's not fair. Life is not fair.
Life's
I
not
demand
fair,
a recount.
Wait, so
Call
I'm
the Secretary of State.
You're the second youngest, Damien.
I'm
I
the
mean, no,
second
you're the
youngest.
youngest. Yeah,
I'm
you're the
the
baby. You're the baby of the group.
He's the baby.
Baby D. Baby D.
Although if Cynthia
Sweet baby D.
if Cynthia makes it, she'll push all of us back.
Yeah.
Well, how old is Sam?
Sam is 39.
And
that
Katie is 45.
So Damien, that would be a good barbecue sauce name, Sweet Baby D.
Sweet baby D.
Nice, I like that. I would try that sauce.
Word. Maybe put a little tamarind. You ever mess with tamarind?
Yeah.
Cinnamon. It's his
Tamarind
flavor.
sweet. Yeah, sweet.
I mean,
spicy.
I don't know. I hate to be the person that brings rain on a sunny day, but I don't think it's such a foregone conclusion that Biden is going to win.
Oh no!
I don't think
definitely
anybody
not.
thinks it's a
Yeah.
foregone conclusion.
Well,
that's
I'm
kind of
scared shitless.
Yeah, I mean, I was just saying that I don't think it's a shoe in the bag, and that I don't think that it's a crashing train. I think that maybe why the Republican, committee is filled with celebrities and with My Pillow guy, and like why we see this
My Pillow
motley
guy.
crew, and it's a part of some of his strategy here. I mean, we're
He has a
looking.
name,
I was going to
Damien.
say it's a
He
really
has
good
a name.
strategy.
Okay, I'm unfamiliar. What was his name again?
No, I don't know. I have no idea.
I mean, this speaks a little bit to my own ignorance of this RNC, the Republican National Committee that they're putting together. I don't really know. It's worth looking into, but I kind of, stepping back and looking at this, already see it as a repeat on Idiocracy. I feel like I should just go watch Idiocracy,
It's worse than Idiocracy.
and then, well,
The
I
film?
mean, they have Beef Supreme in Idiocracy. That was pretty cool. They water out of toilets. That was funny.
Rondo Wade. It's got
Rondo's
what
Thirst
plants
Mutilator.
need.
Yeah.
Yeah, what plants need.
Yeah, it's what plants crave. I'm telling you, electrolyte.
That's what it was. This was plants.
But it's see that right there, comedy, art, music, poetry, and comedy. This is how you reach people. So, all right, like some aggressive canvassing techniques can help sway opinion sitting on a fence. But when you talk about like mending fences, which is perhaps an even greater canvassing technique, which is something I really loved doing, was bringing neighbors literally together, like literally talking from neighbor to neighbor and telling each neighbor about the other neighbor's day, and like, yeah, maybe you should give them a call. They seemed really busy, like silly stuff like that. But on a grander scale of fence mending, what I'm getting at is that comedy and being able to make good jokes like that, was able to deal with a lot of opposition. As a canvasser, I spent time with non-supporters, but I made that time effective because I was able to use poetry and comedy to create pivot points where we were able to see things from a different view, both of us. I mean, as much as I was a public educator, I was also a student learning from some of my contexts about a language that I didn't even know existed until I met that opposing view. So when I'm saying like some of what Trump's strategy here is a little bit with this RNC is he's appealing to the comedy that pulls people over a fence. And when you laugh and you're like, oh, listen, I'm voting for Biden, and you're set on it, but your laughter alone has already rippled out in little minute influences, maybe not to you, maybe not even to the viewers that may sift through this video, but somewhere out there, that little electromagnetic pulse your heart made, it's rippling out to do something. And I think that maybe the Democratic Committee could stand to use some more poetry and comedy and to bring more art into the field of politics.
I can totally agree. I can totally agree with that.
Yeah,
totally agree with that.
And I would popcorn that off and say, do you know of any good Democratic art? You know, any great Democratic comedies?
I mean, I think most comedy comes from most artists and musicians and comedians tend to swing Democrat.
Although, you know what kills me? Like, I wanted to bang my head against the wall about this. I remember 4 years ago, Jay-Z and Beyonce showed up like doing a benefit for the Clinton campaign, and the Trump campaign actually came out and said that Hillary was associating herself with known drug dealers and we shouldn't vote for her.
Yeah, I remember that.
Wow.
Referring to Jay-Z, when I don't think Jay-Z's been out on the block in years.
Yeah. What an interesting twist on comedy right there. I mean...
Yeah, that's comedy.
That's funny. Yeah, I mean, even right now, I'm laughing about it, and that was years ago. I might look up a video to see them try to spin that.
Well, they did that to Nas, too. They did that to Nas. Bill O'Reilly brought up, like, some...
What's his name, too?
Uncharged or something.
Recently,
who, what?
He had Public Enemy.
Oh, Flavor Flav or Chuck D?
Yeah, well, Flavor Flav didn't... he wasn't part of it, but he was going to have Public Enemy and Prophets of Rage play at one of his concerts, and there was a lot of backlash from it, and I don't know why it never happened exactly, but I think Flavor Flav threatened to sue.
Wait, no, Bernie did have Prophets of Rage play.
He did have them play? Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if he actually did.
Yep.
Or not, because I heard a lot of back and forth about how their message is not it's a socialist message, it's a an un-American message or whatever. It's all not.
You know that they're dealing with Bernie Sanders, right?
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, the guy doesn't aspire to not be a socialist. Like, you're not really insulting the man.
Yeah, seriously. But it's like, I feel like that was such a low blow, though, to be like, oh, Hillary associates herself with a known drug dealer.
Yeah, low blow all the time,
I don't know that he's a known drug dealer.
Well,
he sings about it, though.
I mean, he's kind of like dry snitched on himself in his music.
I mean, my best guess, him, like many people, certainly probably still have, or at least for a very long time, still have money in the streets. But again, I'm gonna say my best guess. Like, I'm not gonna pretend like I don't understand how the culture works.
Yeah, the game remains the same. Hustle.
Yeah.
Although I feel like that, like, and that's a whole nother topic for another time, but like, it's fucking stupid for people to involve like people from the block who became famous in like their street activities, because that's the people that are making the money for them. Like, you want to put them at risk of getting arrested and like.
I mean, but they generally don't. They
generally don't. You're right, but like, if they were to, I'm just saying hypothetically, that would be stupid.
Well, and even at a certain point, at a certain economic level, you become a threat to the economy itself. They're not going to arrest you; they're just going to kill you. And by they, I mean whatever corporate sponsorship, has an invested interest in whatever you're disrupting. I might reference again, maybe third or fourth time in all of this, Nipsey Hussle, who developed that kind of economic movement that disrupted some corporately sponsored interests in a few storefronts that, due to an attack on the community, were losing their ownership to. And Nipsey Hussle was able to redirect some of his own personal funding to buy those storefronts.
But you don't think the guy
back to the people.
You don't think the guy who shot him because he was like working for a corporate entity? I don't think so.
There's definitely a lot of good questions to ask about that guy and that day in particular, which was a very different day for Nipsey Hussle, who usually has an entourage of people with him. But due to the specific speech he was giving the kids to teach them that they didn't need to be a part of a gang to become successful, he was without his entourage that day. It was too particular to not ask questions. And that's all I encourage, is to ask questions.
What, so you're saying that the circumstances were too, like, peculiar to not, like, question what was surrounding them?
There's 3 or 4 coincidences. I can't say I have 5 to form a very accurate hypothesis, but there may be more information I'm missing. It's just worth considering is that at a certain point, arresting you isn't a matter. You could buy yourself out, you could bail yourself out. And at a certain point, I mean, if truly this whole thing with, the accusation of, oh, they're associating with known drug dealers, I look at that as a comedy, because if it was truly an issue, then they would have taken care of it, whoever was disturbed by whatever economic interruption would have occurred.
But I'm curious. I'm very curious, like, because I really don't know. Like, oddly enough, sometimes I'm the entertainment reporter, and I'm really not that familiar with these circumstances. Like, what makes you / people think that like it was a planned hit on, like, in the Nipsey Hussle case, like, coming from, like, government or something?
Yeah, I mean, I'll speak more on this. I mean, unless anyone else has extra info on Nipsey Hussle before I dive into some of how the gang affiliations which he brought peace to, and some of the other involvements. Did anyone else have anything, or we just have a few surface scratches?
I mean, for the government to be involved seems like it should be kind of high. What's that?
I wouldn't necessarily jump straight to saying the government. I would sooner say corporate sponsorship before I would say political protections were involved.
Wait, what do you mean corporate sponsorship?
That there was.
Yeah, that's where I'm confused.
Yeah, right. Well, and this is the difficult thing to speak into, is that there wasn't the issue was with communal equity, and that the communities were losing value, and amongst the value lost, people in the community who owned storefronts were losing their storefront. And there was corporate sponsorship with an interest to invest in that storefront. But Nipsey Hussle was able to redirect funding and support those storefronts to keep them alive for the people. And why I say that would become an issue, especially dragging on into the date of his murder, which was March 31st, 2019, this specific event stopped all of his efforts cold in their tracks. That's why I say there's only a few coincidences I could really connect at best, just being the particular day, the lack of the entourage and the corporate involvements and the redirecting of communal equity. So the extra coincidence files would involve getting to know the guy who actually shot him and what gang affiliations were associated, especially to consider that one of his great achievements was bringing peace between rival gangs in his community, which set an example nationwide.
I mean, from what I could gather from what I read about it, like, what I read was that the guy that shot him, like, they had an argument earlier because Nipsey Hussle had basically confronted him on, like, allegations that he was talking to the police.
He sunned him in front of everybody.
Yeah, he denied a mixtape or a CD that he was trying to give him also, that was in the details of the guy who ended up killing him. He was there earlier. He was rejected and denied by Nipsey Hussle. He came back moments later with a gun and shot him. If I'm not mistaken, that was the original report.
But I had heard that there was some sort of arguments about, like, some sort of words between the two of them about the other two, like, potentially being, like, a government informant or something. But that might just be, that part might be hearsay. Like, obviously I wasn't there, but.
Like, what other two?
Like, basically, what I had read was that the guy who shot Nipsey Hussle, that he got in an argument with Nipsey Hussle because Nipsey Hussle had somehow come on to like information that this other dude was snitching, was cooperating with police.
Yeah, but that's not why Nipsey Hussle was mad. He didn't care.
Okay, that's what
So what happened? What it was
asking.
like Nipsey Hussle wasn't sunning dude because he snitched. Nipsey Hussle wasn't dealing with dude because he snitched, which got dude angry.
He was just like, I'm not gonna like. He was just like, I'm not gonna have nothing to do with you.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. The whole discrepancy over the CD or something that was mentioned in the first report did not make any sense to me and made me very suspicious. The whole denial of working together due to disloyalty, that makes sense. And it is interesting to see that Nipsey Hussle brings peace between rival factions. That's a very beautiful moment for the community, but also now a more complicated moment for invested interests that might have preferred the community to be at war or against each other in some way or another. War is probably not the best word, but
those vested interests could have been the police themselves, because if there's no violence, they don't have a job.
And we're talking a little bit about political protections and corruption there for sure. Something that
seems.
That's a bit of a
stretch. Seems like a stretch.
Seems like a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, I think so too, because police do like to go home at night.
Yes.
That's true.
And the cogs that would have to be in motion for that to be taking place would have to be there'd have to be 20 people involved at least.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of people to involve in a conspiracy. Like that's why conspiracies that exist usually only need about 4 or 5 people to like once you involve multiple, double-digit number of people, they usually get found out.
Yeah, unless you're talking about
that's the key with conspiracy, right? You're talking, right. They say they use the phrase the tyrannical majority, but with conspiracy, it's the tyrannical minority hidden within the guise of the majority.
Yeah, 2 or 3 like-minded individuals meet.
But here's the thing: is like the more people involved in a conspiracy, the more likely it is that they're going to get found out.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say. Is that it's unlikely to exist as a conspiracy unless it's kept within a group of maybe 8 individuals would be like the perfect number to get your. Depends what kind of a plan you got. If you're going to rob a bank, that's why when. I'm not going to rob the bank, but
it also depends on the type of the conspiracy.
Yeah, that's still a conspiracy. So when you rob a bank, like Vice had a show about a guy who was robbing banks in the 90s, and he would only have 1 or 2. As soon as he let another person know, other than the 1 or 2 guys he was working with for each bank robbery, once somebody else knew, it was over for him.
Yep.
Because it was found out, and the conspiracy had become.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, because
the best conspiracies are put out publicly.
Right.
They let you see them, and then
my line.
Then they give you 100 other stories to go right along with it.
But the point is that I'm making is that the more people involved in a conspiracy, the more likely somebody is going to flip once they get caught, because that's the MO of law enforcement, to get the smallest people to flip on the people above them, to flip on the people above them, etc. So you're better off just not telling anyone.
I think the MO is actually to get the people at the top.
They want to get the people at the top eventually, but they use
regularly
smaller people.
They use smaller people.
Keep in mind,
to get to the bigger people
at the top of these things want to build something that's too big to fail, something that can be integrated into plain sight. We can even look at some stuff where people at the top can do something and then leave it to other people to run and become.
You have no knowledge of it then.
Correct. So silent partnership speaks to how larger conspiracies with bigger cogs can work. And as a cog in the wheel, you have no idea where that 2% of your wealth is going. You just know you give it to the guy who shows up every week and your operation is good. So when we talk about,
all the guys at the top have a lawyer on retainer.
Of course they do.
Just what it is. You know what I mean?
They got hard to involve like you see it a lot in movies and stuff, but in actual reality, to involve a police conspiracy, every police officer eventually finds out what's going, like, because they have to, you have to, the cars all have the GPS in them. Everybody knows what's going on, and eventually it's not training day out there. It's not,
It used to be that way in Buffalo.
it used to be. It may
For
have,
real.
but now there's a lot
We
more.
done had entire precinct 16 used to just get indicted. Like the feds would walk up, come in and walk out with cops in cuffs, like straight up.
That was way before all the technology has served to make a better police force. I mean,
Yeah.
yes, there's still, don't get me wrong, there's still tons of absurd brutality and absurd racism that's systemic through police, because that's how they're trained.
Indoctrinated.
They're trained to profile people, and that's absurd. But
well, and I've actually seen, I saw an article where somebody was a whistleblower about the fact that they attended like some sort of like a training to be a cop, like or were in the police academy, and they took them to the shooting range, and instead of like, when you go to the shooting range like normally, like there's like cardboard outlines of like generic person
right
that you shoot at. No, they were having these cops shoot at like a cardboard cutout of an actual picture of a black person, which was
just crazy.
friggin' appalling.
I was just going to speak on behalf of some friends that are in the law enforcement, and they have, spoken a little bit about the systematic indoctrination process and what happens in the schooling with the academy. When you go to report some bad behavior, as it were, you typically get hazed, and in some cases viciously beaten for reporting such behavior, and even put on very questionable patrols as a result, and you get put in some very questionable situations. So
well, you don't. Yeah. You don't want to be they don't want more work. It's what it really comes down to, and you're creating public opinion that is necessarily negative, and it's a whole. That's how they train them to keep it within the precinct, keep it like this, because they have to.
It's fraternal.
Yeah, but that's
right. Question for Itch.
That is what needs to be forced out of it. Otherwise, what we're working towards with technology, with body cams, with surveillance. I don't mind a surveillance world. Like we have to get used to it. What I don't like is when you are surveillanced and when the facts come out, the proper justice isn't served.
I got a question for Ish. You were talking about the difference between Nipsey avoiding this guy for being a snitch and then sunning this guy in front of everyone. Can you talk about what you meant by that?
From the story that I understood was the guy approached him. He had known him, so there could be some backstory behind that. But he approached him about a demo in front of his people earlier, and Nipsey sunned him in front of everyone. I mean, and what I mean by sunned him is, he ain't want to deal with him because he snitched.
He burned him.
Yeah, and he did it in front of like all his people.
Embarrassing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because he was a snitch. He was a known snitch. Not that Nipsey saw this dude and blew up his spot because he was a snitch. He blew up his spot because the dude tried to deal with Nipsey, and Nipsey is like,
I'm not having this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I might also mention, to add to the Nipsey Hussle coincidences, the fourth coincidence in the mix that just stopped me before a good hypothesis was his endorsement of Dr. Sebi and his attempt to do a documentary on Dr. Sebi, who is a controversial doctor. I think
we all know Dr. Sebi, right?
Okay,
everybody knows Dr. Sebi.
That's good.
No, I don't.
Okay, some of
you don't know Dr. Sebi?
Yeah.
I mean, I might if you describe him.
I mean, the shortest description is nutritional health could help change everything you know about your bodily issues. But if you guys want to dive into a more descriptive,
I mean, there is a conspiracy idea that he was killed.
Right.
Yeah.
Because of his natural remedies and practices That he definitely certainly got arrested
He
and was
the
put.
first to
So now
doctor
there
that
are
worked on this
conspiracies that people who wanted to make documentaries with him are also being targeted. I don't know how much, you know, I don't know how
Like
much
Dr.
truth
Sebi is
there is.
a big name in the black community, especially in the conscious black community. Like he's a big name.
Yeah.
Okay.
And his work is actually really amazing. He's some of it, not all of it's available to dive into. It was an interesting like rabbit hole with a few dead ends that seem to be purposely put there. But like the whole concept is he interrupts big pharma. He interrupts corporate sponsorship. You know, his work, you know, if proven true and put out publicly, could disrupt the entire pharmaceutical market. And that's why that's an interesting fourth coincidence for Nipsey Hussle to be involved with prior to this murder.
So what he was doing ostensibly was like similar along the lines of like the people advocating for legalized marijuana and the pharmaceutical.
Well, not just
No,
just that.
it was way beyond that.
Yeah, way.
Real food, psilocybin, like what we eat now and consume as Americans in like general populace. Like personally, I like, you know, I don't want to eat processed, you know, craft slices on a, you know, that's not, but that's what most people are eating. They're eating a processed diet, and instead of,
well, that's because that's what's there.
I mean, he had ideas like not eating vegetables that weren't rooted originally, right? Like these are some of the concepts that he had. One of his concepts was the idea that sickness in your body is a state of dis-ease, hence disease.
right.
And that there were things that you could ingest to bring your body into a state of ease, and arguably not cure, but prevent the conditions by which dis-ease can set in.
He was a big proponent of alkaline.
Yep.
Of like the alkaline food movement.
That the human body itself is the healer.
Yes.
That the food is the activation, like, or the, not just the food, but what you consume is what gives you the ability to heal.
Yep.
I don't know if that's exactly how.
Yeah, he had a several different diets and plans and ideas on how to bring your body into a condition naturally by which you can prevent, not heal, just prevent a situation where you have to heal from something. Like completely eradicate the situation that exists for you to have diabetes or cancer or.
So we're talking like holistic medicine here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the alkaline
nutritional level on it.
Movement.
Yep.
One of his big things was just not eating. He wasn't against meat, but like there were certain ways that you were supposed to eat food. Like he didn't like broccoli. It had to, if it was a vegetable, it had to have a root. It had to be something that rooted itself in the earth.
Well, the plant itself had like
yes.
For instance, you could eat beans and
legumes. Yeah. Carrots.
Right. But it had to come from something that actually took root.
Yeah, this is an interesting subject to get into about the plant kingdom and like the relationship between the soil and the plant and how some of the nutrients get exchanged.
It's a very important thing that needs to be, like, people don't discuss it enough, that we deteriorate, like through our agricultural movement, we've actually done more harm than any good in the soil.
I mean, think about it. We eat broccoli, right? Like it's not naturally occurring.
No, broccoli doesn't grow wild. That's right.
Right. You know what I mean?
Mutated cabbage, right?
It doesn't exist in nature.
Right.
Exactly.
It's not a naturally occurring vegetable.
Yeah, it doesn't occur naturally.
Yeah, but is it modified from cabbage or what was it?
I believe cauliflower.
It was
cauliflower. That makes sense.
Oh, I thought those aren't both cabbages.
No, they don't. There is no such thing as a wild broccoli. It's a cross pollination.
Right.
Of the It is it's not cabbage though. I don't think. I think it's
okay.
I know cauliflower is a part of the process.
right. I think you're right. I can't remember the rest of it, but you're 100% right that it doesn't exist really in nature per se.
That it was man-made, ostensibly.
Yeah, but so is corn. Corn does grow in nature, but corn was
Blue
developed.
Corn.
Yeah,
Corn is
corn was
genetically
developed
modified by Monsanto.
before before obviously before America, but in pre-colonial times, before even the Aztecs existed, that's what they worshipped it because supposedly their makers merged it together from grain and grain and whatever. But corn is a non-natural occurring. It's a genetically modified food, but it is good for you. It's just because something's genetically modified doesn't necessarily make it bad. It's all in the way that it's genetically modified.
Something back to Nipsey Hussle that I think is also important to add to what communal equity means and what his movement was about was the focus on STEMs, which is a educational acronym for science, technology, engineering, and math. And these 4 fields create new collar work, which I think in one class we discussed it as what would be called pink collar work, but not white collar or blue collar. I don't really like the collar terms for work. That doesn't really.
It just makes it easier. It does give it a weird connotation, but it makes it easier to.
It makes it easier to like categorize things, I guess.
But he saw it as like the Silicon Valley and the developments in the area where he was creating a divide amongst the communities and making it impossible for his community to integrate with the wealth of the other communities. So by teaching science, technology, engineering, and math extensively and making it affordably available for everyone in his community, he was creating a stepping stone to bridge the gap between these areas. And this is where I kind of had to dial back a little bit again to see like there are things about what Nipsey Hussle was doing that interrupted or disrupted the status quo on some of the issues dealing with corporate sponsorship and invested interests for that matter.
Yeah, I think like I kind of know what you mean. Like I kind of see where you're getting with that like maybe people were like not pleased with the idea that he was trying to help people of his background advance in society because that disrupts like
that would
the natural ecosystem of white fragility.
Right, but there's no actual evidence or anything of this, right?
No, just I have the 4 coincidences. A questionable 5th coincidence that almost forms a hypothesis in all of this is that his work stopped. I mean, it immediately stopped. Funding and efforts came to a halt. Everything he was working on just seemingly disappeared as if it was erased from ever even being produced. His own family had some mild comments on the matter. It seemed as though to me it may have been threatened by some other forces, though that is just an opinion and a poorly formed hypothesis. But his family did receive a few donations, one specifically from George Bush, and some donations that do make me particularly think more into some of the forces at work, some of the invested interests that may have been involved.
Hey, just to go back to what Ish said, I looked it up and it looks like Dr. Sebi looks like he was not into any meat or dairy at all. It looks like
I didn't think it was.
Okay.
I just think it was like I thought he was a vegetarian, but I wasn't. I don't know everything about the guy. I just know a few things just from. I like to keep myself nutritionally advised.
Yeah, if you go to Dr. Sebi's cellfood.com, it has his nutritional guide, and it's a vegan diet.
A back to nature diet. I mean, livestock has its role in nature. I don't want to discredit that, but for sure, when we start to develop maladaptive digestive tendencies, it does seem that the plant kingdom has more to offer us as far as enzymes and some bioavailability that the animal kingdom doesn't.
Well, yeah, because every time because you're skipping a part in the food chain by eating the plant directly, because every time that you go up a level in the food chain, like say you've got a cow eating the grass, like some energy gets lost in the process of the cow eating the grass, and then you eat the cow.
The problem is cows don't graze anymore.
Well, yes, but I was giving a hypothetical example. I didn't say it had to be true.
Oh no, I was just adding to that though. Like a lot of
great point. As far as processing goes, and like what happens with some of the lost farming methods and domestication methods. Maybe there's an answer, but as far as we could tell, back to nature seems to be a very helpful step for people who are having maladaptive digestive problems. I mean, obviously, if your body adapts, I wouldn't know what else to say about it. But if your body's having a hard time, it might be good to give a little back to nature check, you know, even if it's once a year for a few months or whatever amount of time you do, just give your body a chance to kind of speak for itself. I would recommend that to people.
What do you mean by a back to nature check?
Just going back to like, as Dr. Sebi, or I actually learned a lot of this from Max Gerson, which led me to Dr. Sebi. Max Gerson had a few other edgy suggestions involving perhaps what people will find to be the most comedic suggestion. He suggested coffee enemas. And literally,
I don't want to discourage anybody from them, but I know somebody that does them for like not that exclusively for a living, but you give them to people and they swear by them. So
yeah.
I've heard of them.
It's interesting.
I've heard all good things. When you get like a little bit older, I think I would try them. I need a little more movement down there sometimes.
You see the comedy, like the comedy helps mend the fence there.
Do it.
You know what else helps too, though? If you're not ready for that step, eat a couple of apples and drink a glass of iced coffee. You know, as your first meal, and you'll be feeling pretty good.
You'll be right.
You'll be feeling pretty good.
Well, I mean, you know, you will have movement. You will have
definitely movement. Yeah, apples and pears.
Everything will come out okay, right?
Yeah, apples and coffee. Yeah, I guess pears work as well.
Mike's got some interesting dietary. That's
all well and good until 2 hours.
Mike likes pasta with peanut butter.
Mike's all about quick release energy.
I'm not saying it's bad, but that's, you know, so take everything.
Wait, say what?
What I said, you like pasta with peanut butter and tahini, and so you'll put what is it?
I don't think there was any tahini involved.
I think there was tahini. Almond butter, maybe it was then.
No, that sounds too fancy. I think it was just peanut butter. I think it was just
apples and coffee.
I think it was just peanut butter.
Drink a lot back then, though, too.
It's all well and good until 2 hours later when you're out in public and you can't find a damn restroom open because of COVID.
That's where Kegel exercises come in.
I don't know. I don't go out anymore, so I don't.
No,
it doesn't really
bother
me as much.
Well,
when you're doing exercises come in.
When you're doing apples,
yeah.
I thought they were for the other side.
Well, Kegel is it's a muscle.
For everything.
It's a muscle. It's just a muscle. Like men should do them too. Speaking in my personal trainer hat, like men should do Kegel exercises as often as possible as well. But you're talking about a muscle down there that helps to control all of the functions down there. It helps to control your bladder function.
It's like the core.
It's the second thing that comes up.
And it's very easy to work. I mean, you'll be sore if you start working it out regularly right away, like any muscle, but it's very easy to work. You just kind of like throb it. But it's a muscle, so it's not like it's a woman thing.
Yeah, Kundalini every muscle at least once a day.
I mean, in all fairness, like, I've probably done quite enough work there just based on being a teacher and never being able to use the goddamn bathroom anyways.
Okay.
Yeah, if you look into some.
I'm actually gonna develop a workout specifically for the Kegel muscle that involves a weight. that you
What, for teachers who have to
Is
train
this-
themselves
is
to not
this-
pee?
you hang from it. You hang it from your Kegel muscle.
Wow.
you just got to get it to move an eighth of an inch, at least 10 to 15 times.
I'm laughing, but those actually do exist.
Well,
Just hanging
according,
from your Kegel. How do they
according
attach
to
it?
this,
I don't know. Why
Kegel,
look at me?
Kegel exercises can help treat stress, incontinence in men after prostrate.
You ain't got no
surgery.
clothes on.
It can help relieve overactive bladder and improve sexual function in some men.
I told you, bladder incontinence. Like that's why I said Kegel. When you're out for like 2 hours and you can't do them Kegel exercises.
Getting back to that, with my coffee and apple regimen, you should go to the bathroom before.
Blender.
You should go. No. You should go to the bathroom before you leave. It's not designed to exit. It's not designed to exit the house and be out and about and let it just hit you randomly. That's not what I'm recommending.
You notice what Mike is recommending. I don't think he knows. He's recommending 2 things that you can consume that give you quick release energy.
With gas. Yeah, I just use coffee usually.
Which means your body is going to process that apple, take the energy from it, and be ready to get rid of the waste.
And be ready to spit it out there
very quickly. Apples are quick release energy, like almonds or pretzels, or it's just quick release energy.
Grapes.
Raisins are a phenomenal quick release energy.
Yes, nice.
Like phenomenal quick release energy. Raisins are what I recommend people to get. Like if you work an 8-hour day and it's like 2 o'clock and you're winding down at like 5, I always tell people you're winding down and can't wait for it to be 5. I always tell people eat a box of raisins.
Is this why white people put raisins in the potato salad?
I don't know about all that, because I don't be getting it, man. That's one of y'all ingredients, man. It's like salt, pepper, raisins.
Leave me out of this. I don't like raisins. Leave me out of it.
I like raisins.
I don't like mayo.
It's like salt, pepper, raisins.
It all started with that poem, A Dream Deferred. And I was like, I need raisins. Lots of them.
Listen, I eat raisins for energy. I just don't eat raisins. But like if I need some quick energy, raisins will do it.
You know what one of my favorite cookies is?
Oatmeal raisin?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
That's a white people cookie.
Oh, I like oatmeal raisin cookies.
Is it? I think white people are trying to take that cookie from us like they took rock and roll. I'm not gonna let it happen. I'm not
That's just like the boring cookie.
No, they took the peanut butter cookie from us.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, they took the peanut butter cookie and actually put the nuts in it.
Mm-hmm. You see?
Like, we're just gonna leave these nuts in this peanut butter cookie.
Okay,
I need to do more research.
No, I like
you can't blame me for the nuts in the peanut butter cookie.
Good.
You cannot blame me for that.
What
I'm a
getting
woman.
You know, I don't find oatmeal raisin cookies boring. I feel like now oatmeal cookies without the raisins.
I shouldn't say they're a white people cookie. They're like for
the older people.
Your bridge class or your
grandma.
the town matinee. Everybody's like the old ladies are meeting.
Okay, so it's for
and that's when they show up with the snickerdoodles.
I throw that in there too.
That's when they show up with the snickerdoodles. That's another white people.
Snickerdoodle too. No, I don't want to generalize them. It's not just white people. It's like old ladies of every race. That's
you know what white people. You know what white.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna hate Matt. Old black women got snickerdoodles from old white women.
Right. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to say. At first I said it was a white people, the oatmeal raisin, and it was a little racist there. But
you know what white people food is? Tomato soup.
Tomato soup.
Yes,
split pea soup. Split pea soup.
Well, I don't know about split pea soup.
No,
Nah, man.
I don't like split pea soup.
Definitely tomato soup though, because it's like the most boring soup. It's the most basic soup that you can make.
Are you making fun of my preferences in soup?
You like tomato soup?
I didn't know you
I
liked
do.
tomatoes.
Right?
With some parsley on top
I remember you eating
No, I don't like
tomatoes
parsley
all the
on
time.
it.
and some raisins on the side.
Here, I got
No, I
I
hate
gotta give
raisins.
this for you guys.
It's a grilled cheese.
Wait, do you
Grilled
find the
cheese.
parsley makes it a little too spicy?
Grilled cheese sometimes.
Do you
No,
find the parsley?
I don't like the texture of parsley or raisins for that matter. It's texture that like
I'm a
I have,
texture
like, an
person myself.
aversion to like the texture of raisins.
It's the reason why I can't eat nuts in a peanut butter cookie or in a brownie because the texture just throws me off.
I
What about you ever tried
Same with me.
pistachios?
I love
They, like,
pistachios. I
melt
just
in
can't
the-
have them in something.
Wait, do you like crunchy peanut butter?
I
What,
don't
you, like,
prefer it,
making a list right now?
What's
No,
that?
I prefer smooth peanut butter.
but I will eat it. But I don't
Okay.
prefer it.
You got some list there.
Who, me?
Yeah, you're reading off a list.
No, I'm looking at some of my
White people
past.
foods. I
I'm-
guarantee you that's list.
No, I'm
reading.
looking at some of my past orders.
Okay.
I like
I
peanut
get-
butter. I like peanut butter
This man
chicken.
ate from Taste Good was the restaurant. I don't know if you
That's
know
my
where that
still
is.
my one of my favorite
You
restaurants.
like
Still,
this? Like,
Oh,
yeah,
tastes good?
Mike, I guarantee this is
Wait,
his
the
order.
restaurant is actually called
7
Taste
years.
Good.
and they make
Yeah,
the best
it's
General
awesome.
Joe. They make the best
Awesome.
General Joe's chicken in Buffalo.
Right, but here's Mike. He got Hunan tofu with ginger, red ginger, and something else. Hot. It was hot though, right? That was like your order for like 6
I
years.
used to get it super spicy, to
And
where I
then
finally
we were
stopped getting it that
wheat
spicy.
gluten. We were getting spicy wheat gluten.
Yeah,
I
yep.
could only stomach that for like, I think it was like 6 months, and I was like, I can't eat this anymore. It was delicious for a while.
Yeah,
Love
I stopped
spicy
getting
food.
it. I stopped
God, I'd
getting it
have
that
to-
spicy.
I'd
I
have
love
to move
spicy
into
food.
the bathroom if I
Spicy
was-
or hot or both.
Yeah, I was getting it swimming in spicy.
Yeah, it was like bright red for
Yeah, do you
like.
remember that?
Are we
Remember
talking?
that-
Are we talking? Because a lot of people confuse spicy with hot.
No, like insane,
like
like
peppers, like peppers.
like really hot peppers, like.
Oh, so hot. Because I always have to tell my wife, spicy does not necessarily mean hot.
Like I was feeling like he was having bathroom issues eating all that spice. I tried. I'm like, okay, I've had enough of that. for
Yeah, I
now.
would have been moving into the bathroom.
I like hot food. I like hot food,
Yeah,
but
I mean, when we say spicy-ish, we mean like, layman's terms. I don't know, like.
Well, see, because I'm a foodie. So for me,
Oh,
like when I
yeah.
say I'm a foodie, like foodie, and I love foreign foods. I eat Chinese all the time. I eat Asian all the time. I've eaten all over the world, so I know. Like I'm always at a restaurant, and when I say spicy, I have to say to them, spicy or hot or both, and they know what I'm talking about because hot isn't always spicy. Like cinnamon is spicy.
That's true.
But you know,
Nutmeg,
Matt,
too?
maybe
Nutmeg is spicy. You see what I'm saying?
Maybe that's the problem I've had for years with these restaurants that wouldn't make my food.
you don't get them spicy enough.
Yeah,
no more.
I just say spicy, and they
They make it
don't
hot.
they don't make it hot.
You
I'm
gotta
like,
make
I
the
want-
differentiation.
I'm like,
Because
man,
you're
I
not
want this
ordering
like.
the right thing.
I'd be like, man, I want you to make this as hot as you would make it for your Chinese customers who,
Right, that you got to be like that. That's like.
But that's what you have to tell them because
be real with you.
their
I want-
understanding of spicy isn't necessarily hot. You see what I'm saying?
Tell them the pepper you
And
want.
then, but then it's the same thing as like, I'll order like salsa or something and I'll expect it to, I'll say I want it mild, but it's still hot because it was mild as opposed to not being spicy.
Mm.
Well,
I guess.
well,
being
yeah.
around
See,
here-
we're getting back to most people when they think of spicy, they think of that like spicy instead of mild, like not hot. Like, most people interchange like.
See, when you
Spicy.
start going to different restaurants and you actually like ask them to specify, you'll see. They'll be like, okay, and they'll know. But they think that most people think exactly what you're saying, so you're right. But like when you just start, next time you go to a restaurant, you want something hot, and they say it's going to be spicy, say, is it spicy or is it hot or is it both? And then they'll break it down for you. Because I used to have to do that. Like, are we talking spicy, hot, or both?
Not that I'm going to a restaurant anytime soon.
Because most curries, right? I love curry.
Yeah.
Most curry is spicy but not hot unless you're talking Indian curry.
Oh, yes.
Which is spicy and hot.
Okay. I got you.
Chinese curry isn't hot. Jamaican curry isn't hot.
Yellow, like.
Okay. I see what you're saying.
Sweeter almost.
I got you.
Indian curry will have you coughing.
Yeah.
Or Indian curry will have you in the bathroom all night, one of the two.
Yeah, and they put raisins in it. But I can deal with the raisins in it. That's the only dish that I can eat raisins in is Indian curry.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you don't really taste the raisins.
No, you don't. It's kind of like I had an African dish that I thought was going to taste nasty from Senegal. And they... Say again?
No, I was just saying, do you be surprised? I thought that when I was younger too. I was like, oh, it's from I can't eat this. But and even the look of it at first, you're like, nah.
Bruh, they took this chicken breast and cut it up in chunks. And guess what they glazed it with? Just take a guess.
Maple syrup.
Nope.
I was gonna say maple.
Good guess.
Dragon fruit.
Nope. Peanut butter.
Oh, that's what Mike. That's an 80 special right there.
Yo,
that sounds exotic.
When you cook down peanut butter and brush it on meat, like it does, it's not sweet anymore, and it's like this perfectly awesome, like peanut flavored Yo, listen.
Right. Well, that peanut oil is supposedly the best thing to cook things in.
Yo, you put it over rice. Oh my God, it was so good. Some jasmine rice, man. Life was good.
A canola oil or a sunflower oil.
Well, now that we're securely talking about food porn.
Those essentially become plastics as you cook them.
You know, Emily, I just have to point out, since no one has pointed out yet.
What?
Your mind goes to the gutter quickly.
It does.
You're
very right about that.
No one's pointed it out in all these weeks and/or months. I'm pointing it out live on air. Okay, back to our regularly scheduled.
Well, that put a damper.
Everybody got silent. Raul, you must be eating a big dinner.
I think somebody was sleeping, right?
Yeah,
he was sleeping.
He got the itis.
Okay. I thought he was. I wasn't sure.
Yeah,
he got off?
She looked out for him and turned off his screen so he wouldn't be embarrassed.
Oh, he's still on?
Yeah, he's still on, but he fell asleep right in front of the computer, and I turned off the video and the noise because everybody would be looking at him sleeping, and we don't want to do that. That's a party foul to do that to someone.
Well, he's actively dreaming, let's say. And
when Mike does it, it's called meditating.
He wants to unmute. He wants to unmute.
Oh, he's awake now.
He's awake.
Raul, I was just saying that must be a pretty big dinner you're eating.
No, I've been awake since midnight of this morning. So.
I
thought you were gonna say you've been awake since midnight on this call. I was about to be like, it's not even midnight. Oh wait, but you are in another.
Yeah, but they're before us, not after us.
So for future references, Raul, the term is meditating. Coined by Flav.
Actually, I didn't coin that. Someone else did.
Yes, you did.
And I just ran with it. Someone else
said, I was meditating.
I think you said meditating. I was like, sure. That's what I was doing. So I have some sad news. I bought 2 different things of this fancy roll-up kind of ice cream. And I went to the freezer a little while ago, and the freezer door was open, and everything was wet. So I'm going to try to refreeze it, but I don't.
You're not gonna.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah,
You party fouled yourself, Flav.
Yeah, there you go.
Well,
Oh, check it out, Mike.
you don't know that was me. You don't know that.
I don't know if you've
that was
seen
me.
it. That was
Yeah,
Jana.
other people live
Oh,
there.
Remember Jana,
Yeah,
Mike?
other people live there. What's that?
You remember Jana?
John? Yeah.
She owns her own company now,
Oh, what kind of company?
like a paper recycling company kind of
Oh, okay.
thing. Like they do. She's on TV right now. That's why. I
Oh,
was
really?
trying to show you
Was
on
she a
TV.
black girl?
No, she's a
No.
white girl, but she
Okay.
like used the canvas with us, and like now it's like a recycle. They do like flower bombs and other like papers for like weddings, like but out of
Oh, okay.
recycled paper. She makes
That's
she got a paper mill, but then she makes
Paper
like
mill.
recycled paper. It's really
So
cool.
she makes that paper.
Makes
Wonder
that
LA?
paper.
I used to go
I know
to
it's
school with
not-
a girl
doesn't
named
sound
Jana, which is why I
exciting
asked.
As it's just somebody we knew.
I used to go
I
to
think
school
I
with
knew
high
another
school
girl named Jonna.
with a
in
girl named
Buffalo.
Jana.
Yeah, I
What's
think I
that? You know what I'm
think
talking
I-
about, Mike, right?
Yeah. I think I knew another girl named Jonna too, though.
Yeah, that's why I just didn't want you to get confused.
Yeah.
I know a wonderful lady named Jana in Idaho.
Oh yeah. I know.
I figure I just might as well add that to the Jana file.
Sure.
Yeah, she was actually a really great deer-loving friend, guiding me through Yellowstone for a 2-week adventure. It was very
Oh,
very
wow.
beautiful
You
adventure.
see any bears?
Oh, we saw a lot of wildlife. That's not Disneyland. It's a dangerous place.
Did you get Yogi's
Oh,
autograph?
I definitely.
Yeah,
I
I got
Oh,
did
that's
definitely
Jellystone.
There's no nobody stealing picnic baskets or anything.
It was very humbling to be so close to a buffalo who was meditating on the side of a parking lot at one point. And I mean, it's a massive creature, and we can talk about it, but it was just odd, like getting out, seeing all these people at the sites, and then just kind of seeing it like it was sitting there the whole time, just very
Just
zen,
chilling.
very calm, and humbling to think like, this thing could have a bad dream, roll over and crush like hundreds of people and not even bat an eyelash about it, but also just like the very like soft nature this creature had to it too. It did also get very close.
What are we talking about? An elk?
No,
Buffalo.
I'm talking about buffalo. But I did
Oh,
also
Elk are
get,
massive, though. To be
I got
honest,
very
with you.
close to an elk with the the fuzzy antlers, which were very alluring actually. I ended up kind of chancing getting a little closer because it was by a building. It was in not the area where you would be going to like walk in nature. It was like venturing closer to where people were. So I kind of got the idea like, maybe this thing is like desensitized to humans a little, like sees humans as being a little more peaceful. So I started getting a little close. I took a few pictures. Then it started getting closer to me, and it's like getting curious about me. And then a park security person came over and was like, "Sir, please slowly take a step away from the elk." And I was like, "Oh, well, yeah, it was just coming closer to me." He's like, "Sir, just very slowly and calmly, please, just step away from the elk." And at this point, I was just in this mixed kind of emotional state, totally in awe.
It was an elk or a buffalo?
No, this one was an elk. Was the step away from the elk moment where
Yeah, you were brave. Elks are formidable.
Yeah. Oh no, there was a power to this thing, and like
How big was
the
it?
stag could have
How big
easily
was it?
killed you.
it was huge.
Yeah.
It was bigger than me. Like
Elks are
being on its
huge.
horse, its back was where my eyeballs were. Its head raised up was above my head, and
Yeah, it's
like
they're
I got
massive.
maybe about like 30.
They're like 1,800 pounds.
Yeah,
They're-
much
they're
bigger.
Strong.
Like
Yeah.
a lot larger than a horse. Like a lot large. Like they're the guy.
You got
What's the
how-
guy from the Wild Hunt who rides the elk?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, the
You know the Wild Hunt, Damien. I know you know it. It's like Midsummer's Night's Dream, the Wild Hunt.
Midsummer's Night's
Fairies,
Dream.
The
It's
Fairy King.
Orion. It's Orion.
Yeah.
So how far from the elk did you get?
Originally, I got up to about 20, 30 feet, but then the thing came within about 10 feet of me.
Okay.
So like I could almost like really reach out and touch the thing.
So
I'll
what
tell you-
happened when he told you to step back?
I remained still, and on the second time, then I did. I complied. I took my small
And then what
step back.
happened? Did he keep telling you to take another step and another?
No, I just complied to getting back to my 30-foot range that I was originally at before it grazed a little more towards me. And then it kind of like just walked forward and then continued grazing at some grass. And then the beautiful part is, so now I'm completely disengaged back with Jana, and we're still kind of looking at this thing, and there's another set of elk on the other side. The thing just all of a sudden looks up really quick, like it got spooked by something or it got inspired by something, and it just gives like a quick burst and a leap and catches up with its other elk friends, which is crazy to think that if I continued standing there in the path where it would have, you know, leapt through, it may have easily just not even thought twice about me and trampled me right over and, you know, severely injuring me or killing me or whatever. But like, truly a great sense of power and a very like humbling experience going through these events. And I was lucky enough to get a lot of memories to document and reflect on and really kind of revisit.
Did you take a lot of pictures?
Yeah, absolutely. The one
you
thing
can see that you can see why most like noble medieval houses had elk somewhere in the in their iconography.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
Did the ranger talk to you after telling you to step back?
No. It was just business as usual.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like, it's really interesting there because it is truly a dangerous place. People do die. There's actually
remind me where that is again. Yellowstone.
Wyoming.
Yeah, it actually stretches between a few states.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wyoming, Montana. You know, Idaho is where
What kind of bears? What kind of bears?
Bears.
Brown bear.
Yeah, they had brown bears there.
All three.
One bear that I saw, and that was actually from a car distance.
Okay.
And funny enough, shortly after that bear, everyone in the road was stopped, and we couldn't figure out what the traffic was. I thought maybe somebody was hurt or needed help.
Mm-hmm.
And this was another amazing nature moment where, you know, me kind of not really knowing much about anything, took a little bit of a risk. There was a snake in the road, rattlesnake, and it was there in the road, and the cars had been stopped. And I thought, okay, well, you know what? I could help this snake get across the road. The snake appeared to be clipped. A car passing by may have clipped it, so it was a little injured. And I grabbed a stick, and I thought, all right, I'll just like shepherd this snake off to the side, right? And
you were on a mission for real, dude.
I was more amazed that nobody thought to stop me. You know, it's like, but then again, it was like, I don't know. I mean, I understood that there was some danger. I just
we got Alexander Supertramp over here.
Right. It was only after the fact I realized the high level of danger, because on the asphalt on the road, the snake being injured was a little slow and confused. It wasn't really moving much. So I used the stick and I kind of like tapped in front of it, and it kind of like went towards the stick. So instead of, it wasn't me like pushing the snake with the stick, I was kind of like luring the snake with the stick a little bit. But as soon as the snake got its like first few inches onto dirt, the thing moved so fast. Like it's hard to describe how fast the snake moved, because you see some videos of snakes, you see snakes on TV move a little quick, but in person, I mean, this thing went from like hobbling in the road to like swimming through the dirt. Like it was as if the dirt side of the road was water, and it just whipped between bushes very fast. And it was in that moment I realized, like, wow, that thing this whole time, like, if it truly felt threatened, just as fast as it whipped through those bushes, it could have just lunged at me with all those muscular.
Was there blood?
It did appear to be clipped a little bit, to the point where some of the scales revealed some blood down by its belly. A little bit, no blood on the road, no big issue. Maybe it even did get crushed, but survivably so. I do believe the snake went on to live the rest of its snaky life.
I think there's cartilage.
So I followed
bone structure.
Right.
You know
I mean, it seemed intact, but anything could have happened. It was hard to really place judgment.
The way that they evolved their structure of their bone, it's mainly cartilage, so they can survive the kind of injury.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, I believe that.
So
did anybody already mention that this is some Moses shit going on with Damien?
I said Moses. I even said Alexander Supertramp.
Oh, it's hilarious.
Hey, can we leave Moses out of this, please? I'm still very sore.
So I
Moses
followed
is an
Yellowstone.
ex-boyfriend?
I followed Yellowstone for some years.
Oh.
Literally some years. I followed. I like to watch animal documentaries. Like I followed the the lions in Africa and specific prides, and so I used to watch Black Wolf from Yellowstone, and he shows up and he's probably in like 10 different documentaries. Only one is about him, but that pack, which is like a super pack. So, and I'm only mentioning this because, and I talked about this briefly with you, Mike, some months ago, and I told you should go on YouTube and watch the documentary. But what they've discovered, which is an interesting thing that they discovered about Yellowstone, is because they've been documenting Yellowstone since the 70s. Like they've been like hardcore, in-depth documenting it. And what they've discovered, and they couldn't have known until they found out in the early 2000s, but they couldn't have known without like this 30-year, documented history. They've been video documenting it. And what happened was at some point in time in the 70s, they reintroduced wolves back to Yellowstone. And what they found out in the early 2000s is that the wolves restored Yellowstone to its original beauty and glory by reintroducing them back into. So this is a predator that had been common to this habit. There's a very long, nice documentary on YouTube about it. This is a predator that was common. It was a natural predator in this habitat. And, people killed them off and hunted them off. So what happened was, because the wolves were gone, like the water turned brown, it was horrible. Because what happened was this is a natural predator that hunted all of the animals that. So without these animals being hunted and them being allowed to just proliferate, they kind of destroyed the land. So what happened was when they brought the wolves back, now these animals have to change their patterns. There's never any threat at a specific time of year because of wolves.
Yeah, they're like the shepherds that kept the order to the force.
Right. So they found out, like, and they literally have this like time stop, that I forget what it's called, where they show you like, how you can watch a plant grow from a seed to full flower.
Time lapse photography.
They show this time lapse from the 70s to the early 2000s, where you literally see the river going from brown to gray to blue, patches of brown land turning green again, trees coming back. Like you literally see this, and it's specifically because they brought the wolves back.
Yeah,
I'd like to see the time lapse of when the planet was coming back because of this whole COVID thing, when things were getting good for Mother Nature again.
Because people weren't driving, so there was no pollution.
And see the one where we destroyed it again just as fast.
Yeah, dumping crap everywhere too.
Now one of the major now there's just landfills all over the world with masks.
Oh, right. Are there?
Gross.
I mean, I'm just like you walk down the streets, you see masks.
They're everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I mean the littering has gotten pretty bad in New York, I gotta say.
Well, look at like the 40s and the 50s, right? I've seen pictures of the 40s and the 50s, which is why I understand today why we recycle, because there was just trash. Like you walk down the street and there's just trash everywhere.
Yeah. A friend in the city working with law enforcement said that they were cutting some funding for garbage pickup, and in recent times, a lot of garbage has been left on a few regular days. I'm still fighting the return to work order stuff and getting a little further into that, but have you guys seen any missed garbage day pickups or anything?
I think I may have seen some of that. Yeah.
I've smelled it.
I live in the suburbs.
Yeah. Well, he was saying that these are kind of the precursor conditions for further disease spread, and he was commending me for continuing to fight the work order. And he said, honestly, it looks like it could end up getting worse within the next month's turn. But a lot of that is because of some funding the mayor cut from the municipal disposal units.
Yeah, because we have no money.
Well, see, I live in the suburbs, so.
Okay. Yeah, same.
My suburb is 5 miles square, so.
The mayor of New York, you're saying?
Yeah, the mayor had apparently cut some funding that affected the garbage pickup, and I'm wondering if that's on any platform anywheres with any politics, because to me, that rings to be a big problem. Like it's just saying in the past, garbage issues were a huge part of concerns dealing with disease and, you know, the viral spread of vectors through germs and bacteria.
Yep, rats and all that. All of that.
Here we go, Mike.
Yeah, here we go.
So in case you guys haven't noticed, and you will at some point enough, if you're on enough, Mike has a fear of New York City rats.
Yeah.
And this fear goes beyond just a normal fear.
No, it's been blown up by Ish.
Let me finish. I didn't blow it up. When I asked, okay, so once again, I'm going to tell this story because I didn't blow this up.
He likes telling the story.
I didn't blow this up at all. At all, I didn't blow this up. As a matter of fact, I feel like I lost some weeks of my life when I found out what exactly it was. So, like this, the first or second time we ever did our show, right? I'm live streaming. I'm in my basement. I'm in the dark, and I'm having a conversation with Mike, and I feel something brush past my leg. I have 2 cats, so I'm thinking maybe it was my cat, but I didn't see my cat. It was just that quick. And Mike says, "Oh man." I'm like, I wonder if it was a ghost. And Mike goes, he says to me, "Well, if it was a ghost," he was like, "That's a good thing. It's not the worst thing that could have brushed past your leg." And I'm sitting here in my basement in the dark, like, huh? Right? COVID just started, like lockdown just started. I'm like, what do you mean? A ghost isn't the worst thing that could have brushed past my leg? Like, what are we talking about here? You know what I mean? Like, he's like, no, I don't even want to talk about it because I don't want to talk it up. So I'm like, talk what up, dude? Like, you can't just leave me on that note. Like, I'm sitting in the dark. Like, should I go get my gun? And he's like, no, man. And I got to go to sleep tonight. I got to try to make it to sleep tonight. Like, I'm like, dude. Like, and he's genuinely talking to me like there's something to be afraid of. And I'm like, so Mike, what's going on in New York? Like, what's happening in New York City that y'all are dealing with that y'all not telling the rest of the world about? Because this is how he's talking. Right. He's like, nah. He's like, I'll tell you another time because, you know, I got to get off here and I'm gonna have to try to make it to sleep tonight. And I'm like, dude. So I literally get off with him and I'm Googling like strange occurrences in New York, like all of this, right? like I'm thinking like, what's really happening? So, like 2 weeks later, we're doing the show. We're talking to Mike, and I'm like, "Yo, Mike, you owe me an explanation." And he's like, "Man," all of a sudden, Mike can no longer hear us anymore, and I think he's faking because he doesn't want to tell me. He's like, "Hello, hello, hello, hello," and I'm like, "Mike, tell us what's going on in New York." And he's like, "Hello, hello, hello." It's me and Joey and Mike, right? So finally, he can hear us, and he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh, it's nothing." And I'm like, "Dude, you can't tell me it's nothing. What is it?" And he's like, "Well, you know, the rats." And I'm like, "The rats?" He's like, "Yeah, man, the rats." And I'm like, "Dude, I've been hanging on the edge of my seat for 2 weeks to find out what this mysterious supernatural thing is. And you're telling me it's rats? Oh, but these aren't your normal rats. Like these joints, like they unlock your door and they come into your house and they don't act like." He was like, different rats from different territories have different characteristics. He's like,
all true, by the way. Except I'm like, knocking your door.
No, this is Jimmy's territory. You see that right here?
It's like, these are territorial rats, man. He was like, you'll be walking down the street and they'll just run up on you and tell you to move. Like yo, he's like, what are we doing with?
Yeah, and they ride the subway too.
Google that shit and you'll see what they've done to diners who were happy that the restaurants were open back up out on the street dining.
He's like, they run in packs. Like, yo. Speak to that a little bit. When I was in the city for March 15th and 14th, after many of the people have already left the city due to the original executive order, there was 2 weeks where I'm going in the city and it's virtually dead. There's like no people. It's amazing. The trains were empty. I was like, wow, this is interesting. Very few people. But the less people there were, the more rats there were. And there truly was somewhat of a little uprising of rats. I started noticing it in the subway. And then by the end of that second week, they were out in the streets, like it was nobody's business.
They were like, whose streets?
Yeah,
Our
so
streets.
it was funny to think that human traffic and human activity in general works as somewhat of a suppressant to keep
Yeah, the rats are scared of us.
and other insects, underground or in hiding. But the moment that we step back from that a little bit, and there's less noise and less traffic in general, they come to surface. And to think, they begin procreating and getting comfortable long enough with the less human activity, they very well may reclaim the streets. Nature may take its course.
Damien, we're not gonna do this.
I like that.
We're not gonna do the rats reclaiming the city.
That's you spoke all facts, Damien. All facts.
We're not doing this. We're not feeding into Mike's unnatural fear of rats and building up this what's next, the Pied Piper?
Right. What I want to do is
This
inspire.
is all scientific.
I want to inspire Flavius to help with the mayor and get the funding to deal with the garbage, because
this is where you go with that, huh?
Yeah, I don't want him to be afraid.
Because of his fear of rats.
Yo, I see what you did here, Damien. He's like, I see what you did there, Damien.
Hey, get rid of the fucking garbage.
I see what you did,
Dude,
David.
I actually was like pretty close to
writing a letter.
Did you write a nasty letter?
At least emailing, at least going to 311 and complaining about the rats on the street.
He's like, listen, we got to.
No, actually, no. I actually have done that. I have done that already. I've already done.
We got to mobilize a unit.
Get everybody on board.
Yeah, there's
Look at it. We got them all.
There's shit that they do.
We got some Piper players around here.
There's shit that they do in the city that they could easily reverse and reduce, like the unnatural rat population. Just like the way that the garbage is in the streets.
Why do you say it's unnatural?
Because there's not supposed to be a bunch of rats running around.
Get a guy
where should they be?
in a big suit.
Their population should be much smaller.
Block.
Should they be training turtles?
Yes.
Their population should be much smaller. There shouldn't be like trash in the streets. Like
right. Well, they don't have
21st
natural
century.
predators. Flavius, if we wanted to fix the rat problem, maybe we should introduce owls to New York City.
Yeah, or maybe we shouldn't have our streets lined with trash like we're in fucking 18th century London.
Well, then maybe
like,
you
what
should
the
write
fuck?
a letter asking for more funding for the sanitation department.
Yeah.
Never watched The
maybe
Secret
we
of
all
NIM.
should.
Never
we all
watched The
should.
Secret of NIM.
But
I recommended you and Joey watch The Secret of NIM. I'm taking that recommendation back from you.
Yeah, don't watch that.
Dude, of course I've watched who are you talking to? Of course I've watched The Secret of NIM. Dude, what?
Did it give you nightmares?
No, because I hadn't lived in New York City at that point. And I hadn't been run up on by all these rats at that point.
On.
Dude, that's what they do. That's what they do to you. They run up on you, dude. They run like.
So what are you
like,
saying?
No, this is what I went through that day.
Like there'll be one that crosses your path and then you jump back, and then there's a fucking another one, and you're like,
what, and then you're telling me that he brings all his boys to run up on you?
They like run them pockets.
5 fucking rats in one setting, like in one walking. Like, that's
He said they run up on you and you jump back and they'd be right there.
And then
Like,
there's a bunch of trash like on the fucking corner. Like the trash situation has to be improved. Even in places where the trash is contained, like in those boxes, instead of just like out in the open, like a waste basket.
Put them in a container.
Yeah,
that would be at least do something.
Yeah, we have the technology. It's called a box.
I know.
I think it was invented like maybe in the 1800s. Like,
oh no, we're getting the hospital voice. We're getting the hospital voice.
We have the technology.
One of the challenges for garbage pickup was traffic in the street and double parking. That was one of the. I went to address this issue once before, and that was one of the opposing views. Is we would need to address the narrow streets, double parking, and excessive traffic.
Sounds like an excuse. Sounds like someone doesn't want to like get on their job.
Can they get drones or something to pick the garbage up?
Nice.
2020.
Kill some jobs,
mean,
but get the
Talk
good.
about
So the
automation.
Japanese have made this robot dog.
hmm
They made it in like the early 2000s. I think Google bought it. Maybe you should write them a letter and suggest a robot cat.
Robot
Yeah.
cat for the
Get
rat.
Yeah, that's a great
There
idea.
you go.
It could run on drone technology and just patrol the streets of New York.
I'm saying just get some rat poison and weaponize it in the drone.
There'd be a lot of dead animals in New York.
Right.
Yeah.
Cats are vicious.
Yeah, then somebody would have to clean all that up.
Rat lives matter.
So what? It's the shovel. That's $5. You get a
Yeah,
shovel.
then the rats are gonna come eat up all the
Immune.
dead carcasses.
And they'll be immune to the poison. They'll just be like, huh, look at that poison they put out.
They're gonna be eating poisonous rats. So
Look at that poison they
wouldn't-
put out.
I
They
would not
expect us
be
to eat that?
surprised if New York rats aren't.
One of my
immune to
college
poison.
buddies said that his he had an uncle who made money off of making like these trash boxes. And I think it's like maybe the bigger. I don't know if it's the bigger ones that all your trash goes into or something, but he like made a lot of money off of a very simple concept, just like a trash box. So they should like.
tote?
What's that?
Like a tote with a lid? Got them
Oh,
all
I-
over the fuck.
Yeah, I don't know.
Wheels on it. Big.
Trash
It's
box of some
blue.
sort. I
Yeah,
guess.
that's what I was
Why
gonna
do you
say.
guys
Like,
have those?
we
I'm
don't
feeling some
have
type of
that.
way about this, Mike.
What do you mean?
Trash box? You mean like the thing that people have been
We
using
just
forever?
roam the whole street with a big
You mean the
box.
thing that we're not using? That we're allowing all the trash to build up on the corner? Is that the thing you're talking about?
I don't know. I live in Buffalo. I just know trash
dumpster?
cans and have been around forever.
Look at all your guys' dumpsters.
Yeah, I don't think we're talking
Yeah,
about cans.
that's what.
I think we're talking about boxes. Talking about
No, I
something
think
bigger
you're
than
talking
cans.
about dumpsters.
No.
Like, why
either
are
way,
we using
it would've
large
used the word-
dumpsters?
Would have used the word dumpster if it was a dumpster. I
So
don't know,
wait,
it's
this guy
probably-
came up with a concept where you take a container and you put trash in it?
Yeah.
That's innovative.
That's
Why
really
did no one ever think
innovative.
about that
I
before?
think I got one of them in my yard.
Well, before him, I mean, they hadn't.
They
Someone
just
had to
threw
think
that
about
shit
it
in the
at
street,
some time.
in the river, I think.
I mean, I think we're talking about it's like smaller than a dumpster, but bigger than an individual trash can. That's all I know.
Are we talking about the solar-powered ones that crush all the trash?
No, that would have been too fancy for the
They
time
didn't
he
do that.
came up with it. But maybe just without the solar power. I mean, it could have been added to later.
I can't believe that that's what's going on there right now.
I told you. I wasn't exaggerating.
I know, it's disgusting. I feel bad for you guys.
Yeah, man. You got like gangs of rats and they're running around uncontrolled.
Rat gangs.
Like
rat
Chicago.
warfare.
Well, do the
Wild, Wild
rats
West.
wear,
Wild Wild West out there.
do the rats you've seen, are they wearing red or are they wearing blue when they
Yeah,
run
rainbow
off
hair.
on you? Shut up!
They're
Rip-
just
rip the
fucking,
blood.
they're
Sure they
fucking
don't got a
wherever
rainbow
they
hair.
want to.
They got rainbow hair, Mike.
I should be paying less to be living in this, be living on the street with rats on it. But of course, when I first moved here, I was like, oh, this is different than Bushwick. There's not a bunch of rats here. And that was like a nice part of the neighborhood. And then COVID hit, and that shit fucking changed.
It's over.
quick. Yeah,
Y'all got COVID rats, huh?
yeah, that shit fucking changed.
Well,
real
they
quick.
took over the city when everybody was inside, right?
Yeah, I mean, they ran out of their normal places.
Yeah,
to,
Mike was like, if
eat.
you've seen what I've seen, and I'm like, what's happening? What did you see?
See what I've seen, the horror thing.
he was like, I can't talk about it because I got to try to get to sleep tonight.
Well, I'll tell you, I remember like a few months back, pre-COVID though even, I was walking to the subway, and on the block next to me, the block association, they had put up all of these signs that they were going to have a meeting to deal with the rat problem, and each of these signs just said in big capital letters, rats! Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. And then the small print is come to a meeting so we can discuss the rat problem on 137th Street. And I'm like,
rats don't carry it, do they?
Carry what?
COVID?
no,
Carry
this is
COVID.
before.
Or do
No,
we
they
not
don't.
even
This
know?
was way before COVID that I saw this.
Rats just carry everything else.
Right. I don't think they do. Or
They
I don't
carry.
know.
Yeah, I don't know.
They're-
I don't know, but they carry.
Right.
They carry disease.
They carry everything
Rats are
else.
vectors for a series of other illnesses. Perhaps the most popular is the bubonic plague, but there are many
Right.
other cousins to this
I
plague.
heard recently the plague kicked up, not in New York, somewhere else.
In California, I think.
Well, it wasn't really a plague
Somewhere
that
out
kicked up,
west.
but certainly a case.
Yeah, just like one case, it got cured. Like they can cure it.
Yeah, it's
but
so controlled.
It's still weird.
Yeah, it's easily curable now.
You know, something to think about too, and the topic of, you know, human influence and how there's things that we do that kind of oppress or suppress the functions of nature, is to really think about something funny like electromagnetic field interference, and that there's this natural Schumann frequency that the Earth has. And as we evolve and adapt with new technology and new ways to manipulate electromagnetic fields, we find little gaps and breaks in these electromagnetic fields. In fact, you could observe that with the Van Allen belts and some of the new introductions to our technologies. But to just kind of specifically poke at what I'm saying is that when we have these advancements that manipulate the electromagnetic fields as they ripple out communicating with each other, they might be naturally suppressing some horrible disease and bacterial vectors that when the electromagnetic fields get messed with, all of a sudden peak and spike in their production. In fact, I should mention in a study, 3 to 30 gigahertz specifically, when exposed to that frequency, both fungus and bacteria grow exponentially, which is to say they're stimulated by it and grow faster. So something that's naturally suppressed by the Schumann frequency, 7 point something, whatever gigahertz, if there's a disruption in that field and it specifically reaches a 3 to 30 gigahertz wavelength, then all of a sudden you'll see a bunch of peaks in bacterial activity and maybe some fungal activity that we didn't see before. Kind of funny.
Yeah, I don't know. What is that based? What is that? I don't get. What is the frequency about? What is it? Where does it come from? Or
yeah, actually,
Humans radiate a frequency of radiation.
Right. When we talk about the electromagnetic spectrum, it's huge. I mean, it's a vast spectrum, and we get little slivers of it in visible light. But there are, you know, like as you're saying, in radiation values, there's other frequencies.
We're also affected by it, interact with, and impact it as well as it impacts us. Anyway, go on.
Right.
Yeah. No, exactly. I mean, the point of a lot of the stuff I was studying, and keep in mind, a lot of this I've learned from electrical theory class, you know, because I'm an electrical apprentice. So a lot of this stuff is coming from sources in class, and then also a few studies, which I should still have links saved that I can send you guys. But some of these studies do specify the effects in the wavelengths. When we talk about wavelengths, we're just simply referencing a measurement, because the reality of the electromagnetic frequency is a field or a sphere. Or in some cases, you could even say spiral dynamics, because the shape that it takes isn't always, determined by a perfect sphere. It depends on some of the other influences, including other electromagnetic fields in the area. So separate fields communicate to each other, and perhaps my favorite field to reference is the field produced by our hearts. And our hearts produce a unique.
oh, you said hearts.
Field. Yes, the human heart. And any heart. What's it?
Nothing. I'm watching Players' video.
Oh no, sorry, that was the wrong. Sorry, that was the wrong thing I put up there. I meant to put something else.
Oh, okay, sorry.
But it's important to think that there's a lot of electromagnetic field activity, and that could also be affecting some of these bacterial vectors. I mean, again, it's a deep subject. It'd be hard to condense it in a short speech, just simply saying that electromagnetic fields affect each other, and as soon as we start messing with one field, it affects another field and another field. And if there's a break in the Schumann frequency, which naturally suppresses some extra growth from bacteria and fungus, it may unnaturally accelerate the growth of some bacteria and some fungus in our environment. So just like the rats that were hiding from all the people traffic, there's bacteria that's hiding from the electromagnetic activity traffic. So if something disrupts that, we might see a bunch of new bacterias and novel viruses.
So this is where all the people are coming from saying that 5G causes COVID.
Not exactly, but they're misunderstanding some principles. They could be misunderstanding some of that information, correct.
It affects more or less the 5G. What the 5G, they don't even know what it does, but
yes,
they've studied it has affected plant life.
Yeah.
You know, in some ways. Negatively, on some plants negatively, some plants they grow more because it does produce, just like anything that you activate electronically, it creates a field. Yeah.
Radioactive field.
Radiation, right. An ionic field. It doesn't necessarily have to be ionic.
Non-ionizing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I was saying radiation is an interesting thing, but people will misinterpret it. And we're better off just speaking, you know, in terms of the electromagnetic spectrum and just saying electromagnetic activity, because we're going to be able to encompass a broader subject instead of getting misdirected by some.
Well, I use radiation because that's the fear people have, even though it's misguided.
Yeah, that's true.
But that's the fear.
But it's more than just the radiation that is affecting everything around it, and
yeah.
You know.
But it's the general principle is one field affects another field. So no matter what you do, once you've adjusted a field or altered a field, it's going to ripple out in adjustments until a balance is formed. And in fact, throughout the history of the developments of all the different generational towers, from the second generation to the fifth generation of transmittable towers, what we see is that they have to do repairs. No matter what, they've always had to come back and adjust something and fix something about the way the towers communicate with each other to account for certain complications. As an example, with the second generation towers, we were having phone lines cross with each other, and even your own house phone would pick up somebody else's house phone.
Oh, I remember that happening. Like,
yes.
I would pick up and they would totally be calling for somebody else, and it would always happen.
Yeah. And it's not just the wrong number dial. Sometimes you'd be talking to your grandma, and then a few minutes into the conversation,
someone butts in.
Correct. And this problem actually very clearly indicates how these fields communicate and overlap with each other. But they were able to fix this problem with something that I can only describe by saying full wave rectification, which is actually referencing when you take alternating current and turn it into direct current. But in another way, what I'm getting at is that there are frequency adjustments made along the way, and that they needed to rectify those frequencies. Another example of that is with the RC cars. If you ever race those with your friends, but your friend accidentally ends up controlling your car, and you start controlling his car. And now you guys can't have a race together because you're on the same frequencies. So they made new controllers with 3 different frequencies, so you could race 3 different cars without cross communication. But that cross communication is telling us a story about electromagnetic field manipulation, widely overlooked. And they've gotten better at it. I'm not, you know, I'm not saying this in a means of stirring up fear or even any too much concern, but to ask questions and to ask for more testing. I mean, why?
Right. We shouldn't be implementing these things that we have hardly any. We do it all the time. It's not just with 5G. It's with almost all of our technology. Whatever. What do we care? Like with the cell phones, it's like everybody's going to have one in their pocket. Now, supposedly they give you cancer. We don't even know if they do or they don't.
Yeah, but here's the thing,
we
though.
don't want to test that.
And I get your point, Matt. I don't know that I agree 100% because the history of technology is trial and error.
Right. Oh, I'm not saying we don't implement things, but we have the process of implementation is if it makes money, put it out there.
But see, the one thing about humanity is that we're adaptable, and our adaptability comes from being exposed to things that forces us to adapt. You see what I'm saying? Like that. Go on. I'm sorry.
How far do you push the envelope until, like, are we going to clone people?
Well, I mean, that now we're talking about some, moral and ethical.
Where do you draw the line? What's
There's-
ethical? What's gonna be? If cloning people is financially profitable, it's gonna happen.
Well, there's a lot of things that we have to do, right? So, and maybe Damien, I would imagine, knows what I'm talking about. I always forget his name, and I recently became aware of him from reading Jonathan Hickman's Dawn of X series. But there's a guy who, in I believe the 50s and 60s, right? He wrote about what civilization needed to. He wrote these steps about what civilization needed to do to reach true advancement and true enlightenment. And cloning is in the process, but it's so far beyond. We're still, one of the things that he said, one of the first advancements that we really needed to make in order to achieve true advancement is to stop using fossil fuels and harness the power of a star. We still use fossil fuels. We are just now tapping into solar energy, and we're so
solar energy is only the tip of it.
Right, it's only the tip, but we're so far behind. I don't know. I can't say behind because there's no bar to compare it to. We're still in the womb. We're still in the womb of harnessing the power of a star. Like we're still literally in it. Like the sperm just cracked the egg cell.
Right, and a tree, for instance, it uses cold fusion. There are things on this planet that do have developed their own way of creating energy. It gathers energy right from the sun through photosynthesis, and that reaction is an atomic reaction that is on the level of when you have a tree that's 2,000 some years old, a sequoia. That's a nuclear reaction occurring in it every single day.
Super intelligent.
That's where we should be researching. We shouldn't be putting our research into furthering human existence. We should put it into furthering the planet-wide, and that's gather our energy from the plants themselves. We wouldn't need to cut them down to use for fuel.
Well, if we're talking high sci-fi conspiracy or
but that's not as high sci-fi as you think.
No. I'm not talking about what you're saying. I'm saying if we're talking cloning, right? Then the obvious step would not really be cloning, but being able to download yourself into a better body.
But that's so great. I mean, ethically, I can't tell you you shouldn't do that, but I wouldn't personally. I mean, me either. But then again, you can't tell somebody not to.
If you have,
here's what I was gonna say about that. Sometimes, right, as time progresses, we find ourselves progressing along with the way of things to where we're just in a situation that becomes the natural conclusion. It's not like it happens overnight. Like tomorrow they're gonna be like, hey, you can download yourself. The process will be such that we become desensitized along the way. Like everything that we've got technologically, we just become desensitized. Like, look how easy it was for us to integrate into a society that's on cell phones.
Like nobody even cares about. Like, I mean, there are people who are I gotta go out. I gotta, but you can still hold almost your whole social existence on the internet.
Right. And it just came. It was just we were desensitized, and one day it was just the norm.
Mm-hmm. I know. I agree with that, but I just worry about how we don't. Safety has become the secondary in our society. Like, look at the Boeing planes from a few years ago, and then I don't know if you guys. This is more of an economic thing, but in India recently they had an overrun with cobras, right? So they decided, hey, I got a great idea. We'll pay people to kill these cobras, right? And so then another brilliant guy in India decides, well, I'm going to breed cobras and kill them
and then just cash in. So then they had to completely dismantle the whole operation because people were defrauding the whole system. And this has affected the entire economy in India. It's like absurd. So that's not a technological thing, but we don't even think about those kind of things when we implement like policy. We don't think of the long term on anything anymore. It's
the now.
Money? Right. And maybe it's because of our technology that we've been able to get things as soon as we want them. Then that's how we want our government to work. That's how we want our entire society to work. I need it now. If I want it, I should have it.
It's instant gratification, hijacking the natural reward system of an otherwise delayed gratification, which would teach us more about how to be involved with the natural process of things, and instead choosing to participate in an unnatural process. Again, back to what you're saying on instant gratification, which we've adapted to. And is it maladaptive would be a good question. I would say, yes, I believe that's maladaptive.
I believe it's dumbed us down incredibly because nobody thinks about really what they want. They only think for a few seconds, this is what I want, and I can get it. Instead of, I've got to build something, or they just order, not like we were talking about earlier on Amazon.
The problem is, right, the natural state of things is unforgiving. And while I don't have a problem with the idea of the natural state of things, the world would, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like
people don't want to die,
and people don't want to watch people die horribly.
Right.
So we cultivate disease. And what I mean is we genetically cultivate disease, right? Like everyone born with Down syndrome, you're going to keep them alive, right? You're going to do whatever you can to keep them alive and give them a good quality of life.
What kind of a society would we be if we'd be Nazis? You know, if we
well, in a natural state though, right? Like old people should just die.
Survival.
And young, weak people should die.
But I mean, we've evolved as a society. We can't live in a structure like that. Is just cruel. You know,
but it's a reality, right? Like if when I was a kid,
like let's not be stupid and get, you know.
Well, think about it. If we let people with certain types of birth defects die, then we're killing that gene there.
Mm-hmm.
That's natural selection.
That's natural selection. Like we're killing that gene.
Something to
that's not eugenics. Like what we're doing is the opposite. What we're doing is the opposite of eugenics.
It's exactly what the Nazis did, though. The Nazis would genetically test people, and if they had any varying diseases like that, MS, they would not let them breed. They would keep them from having children.
Yeah, but I think that's different than that. Maybe I'm misinterpreting.
No, in a natural state, I'm not talking about taking them and killing them. In a natural state, they would die off.
Yeah, there's no security in nature, is what we're kind of looking at a little bit.
It's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like for instance, if you take Cro-Magnon and Neanderthal man, which we know lived alongside of each other, right? The Neanderthals died because they didn't progress. They didn't sit down and gather fruit. They didn't look at the rock and say the rock is a rock today, tomorrow, and the next day. You understand what I'm saying? They just didn't progress, so they died out.
I just wanted to, since we mentioned a little bit on the topic of eugenics or genealogically produced disorders, some of these disorders we think are in our genes are actually produced by environmental hazards.
Right. Absolutely.
Right. I
Absolutely.
So remove some of the unnatural environmental hazards and then see humanity progress to its fittest and simplest form.
Well, there's other things that we have to consider, right? Like it would be super rapey.
What do you mean by that?
Well, like people would just rape each other.
Oh, and you're saying without security or without...
In like a natural state, but then it wouldn't be like, no one's procreating out of love, right? It's probably out of necessity.
Well, now we're kind of talking about comfort.
Nobody's.
procreate out of, you know.
In a natural state?
Well, but you can't force a natural like that. That's
no.
Still,
we're just talking about. I'm just hypothesizing about it.
Hypothetically, okay.
Well, what do you mean? What do you mean by natural state? What does that mean?
He's saying it as if we're brought to our animal nature,
hunter and gathering state,
right?
State of
like back to primitive times.
Society away. Like
a survival of the fittest state of things.
But I want to point out a little bit here is love is an extension of comfort. And if in a society of hunters and gatherers we establish comfort, then we may not resort to these primitive behaviors that you're talking about, which mostly exist when animals are held captive or held in imprisonments or in zoos. In a natural environment, it's in our nature to be compassionate. We want to help others because we see an exponential gain in helping each other, whereas individualism would leave us to die, especially in the winter. So
well, it's all that you hit on that, but you have to keep in mind, and I want you to finish. It's also in our nature to be violent, and you hit on it though when you said in the winter would leave us to die. That is very tribal, right? Like many tribes get to a point where they recognize they cannot take their old, and in some cases the very young, if it hinders the entire group.
I want to touch on something that you said. I want to touch on something that you said, assuming about this whole natural state. I mean, there are plenty of quote unquote animals that like.
Yeah, but animals don't think like humans.
Can I finish my sentence, please?
Mm-hmm.
There are plenty of animals who like practice compassion, including bonobos, who we share like 99% of our genes with, and who don't like act in this like wild.
They like, also practice violence.
Well, first of all, let me finish my sentence. They don't act in this like wild beast-like manner that you speak of.
I didn't never speak of a wild beast-like manner.
Well, like going around like
rape is
living in a rapey.
Well, survival of the fittest says that you seek strength, right? So, like, what are we doing here? Like, what are we talking about here? That we're not going to pretend like this is off the table. That it's just this world of love and compassion.
Well,
I have no idea. I have no idea what that has to do with what I just said. I'm comparing us to bonobos who don't. Who are not acting in the way that you're describing. I mean, there is a difference between bonobos and chimpanzees, but even chimpanzees have been like mischaracterized as this like overly violent species. But I mean, we're pretty close to bonobos, and they figured out how to use compassion and sex as well as like this kind of system. Where they're able to like barter, and they're able to like just like act in a way that's like shows more maturity than this just like survival of the fittest, take it how you can get it by any means necessary.
Yes,
kind of way.
I guess I don't understand what the point of the comparison is.
Because you're saying that in nature, like you're saying that like if we were just in nature,
we wouldn't produce for love, you said, or we wouldn't produce.
I did say that, and I said, but I still don't understand, even with that being said, what the comparison between something that doesn't have human nature is.
Because I just told you, we like share like 99% of our.
Do we share human nature?
What is human nature? What does that even
mean? I don't know, because when you say we share 99% of our genes with bonobos, like, so are they?
Most human nature now is developed through civilization and through society's influence throughout generation after generation.
I think human nature in and of itself is a distinct thing from any other animal's nature, which each animal probably has a distinct nature. And I think that nature will be influenced by whatever type of world we live in, be it a natural state or a civilized state. But I think it's certainly distinct. I don't think that's why I'm confused by the comparison, because it's like, well, wait a minute. Based upon the way the world works now, do bonobos make fire?
Yeah, they make fire. Yeah.
Oh, they make fire and cook food?
I don't know if they cook food.
Some animals are noted for washing food off, which is considered a high-functioning cognitive ability.
Right, but what I'm doing is I'm trying to understand the comparison between bonobos and Homo sapiens.
Yes, to speak specifically even to just the philosophy of what we're talking about, is something that strength appreciates the most is oftentimes the ability to let go. And sometimes, like you were saying before about infant mortality a little bit, the greatest sense of compassion is knowing when to cut the weakest link out. So the important thing to think about here is that strength is not necessarily just a matter of display on brawn. In fact,
well, I've always said that strength is whatever the strength is in a given situation.
So in terms of what rape culture is, we can look at a few animals that do rape, like otters. Sea otters are known to rape and kill.
Elephant seals.
Right, so we can look at some of these animals that do this, and they hit a clear wall in their ability to evolve beyond some of these difficulties that we as humans can observe are maladaptive. It is not successful to rape and kill your mate and then continue raping him. It just doesn't procreate. It doesn't.
Well, that's certainly not what I implied.
Right.
Raping and killing your mate. That's something I didn't imply. Nor did I say we'd be running around in beast mode like wild beasts.
Yeah. So what I'm getting at though is that, you know, something I reiterate a lot is the game remains the same. So take away all the toys and tricks and all the, you know, comforts that we've developed around with security, but there's still a game. There's still politics that people are going to play, especially if we maintain any sense of articulation or any kind of means of communication. We're going to use that first. And as a trained martial artist, you would say too, probably, that the ability to negotiate and to communicate is always a first check before anything else happens. So when we talk about other people that are not so well trained or people who are not so well articulated, yes, perhaps they may end up in a fugue or a state of confusion, and it may lead to some violent misunderstandings. But we got to see that as a certain anomaly, even that it's not actually natural to do that. That's maladaptive and unnatural. It's
the natural state of things involves civility.
Yes.
Because it was our natural. The reason why we progressed is because the natural course of action for us was to sit down and hunt and gather, to domesticate animals.
That was an evolutionary step, yes. Domestication, though nomadic, there are some philosophies that embrace a nomadic lifestyle, and even some diets that would suggest getting a better range of biodiversity or a greater profile for your protein intake or whatever you think is important. Eat is better off in travel than domesticating. So there are some things to question about the domestication and domesticated lifestyle, leading to processed foods and other problems we've seen. And that's some of what we're questioning is what is human nature. We are the amnesiatic species that are trying to get our memories back. We have forgotten some very key components to our nature and what is natural. And this is a really great subject we've jumped into. But just like how we went from electromagnetic fields to cloning, we've kind of went from like, okay, a natural living to, you know, raping and beating each other over the head. So these are some like big leaps. And
now, mind you, I'm not co-signing this stuff.
Yeah. No.
What I'm saying is some people will see there will be people in that, and it, depending on the type of state we depict, right? If it's just humans living in the wild, so to speak, there will be people who will procreate because of strength. Women who will choose their mate not because I love you, but because he can protect me or give me good genetics.
We might find women.
Okay, can I interject again?
Sure.
So the reason that I brought up bonobos is because it's part of our like process of understanding who we are, to like compare ourselves from like where we came from, right? Like there's like evolution involved, and there's other animals that we've studied who have like similar characteristics and higher cognitive abilities. And so by me comparing ourselves to another species that we consider ourselves higher than, what I'm saying is if they can figure it out, surely we can. If they are still in a quote unquote natural state, then that starts to make us question how beings in a natural state would or would not act. So that's the reason why I made the comparison.
Okay.
And shit, I was going to say something else.
And you forgot?
How did I start off?
About bonobos mating for love, or that's how we all started.
Well, that was the last round. Oh yes, the strength issue. So like in a society of like bonobos or chimpanzees, I'm not sure that strength is always seen on an individual basis. And this is a question. This isn't like I don't have enough information to make this an argument to stand on. But I'm not sure that strength is always seen as something that's on an individual basis. Chimps and bonobos are known for like how they place themselves in the hierarchy, and strength can often mean your position in society. I just wanted to throw that out there.
The concept of strength and survival of the fittest doesn't mean physical strength.
Okay.
It just means whatever strength is.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying?
It could be emotional.
Right. It could be adaptability. It could be practicality. It could be ingenuity. Whatever strength, whatever that strength is.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to see a parallel reality where all the narcissistic sociopaths who depended on manipulating others fail to survive in a natural environment because they never learned any actual skills or abilities and just depended on others. I'd love to see that, but I have an underlying feeling that they may still find a way to weasel in between the workings of a society and what politics may still exist.
But that would be strength.
I don't think anyone's arguing against that, Damien. I don't think.
I was going to say that would be strength.
Yeah. I guess to clarify that, what you're saying about strengths, and and then also the ethics of that kind of strength. This is now getting me asking a whole bunch of other questions too about what is natural and what is human nature.
Right. That's
that's what I was going to say. It comes down to the distinct. What is human nature?
Right. Yeah. You have to. Like every person's nature is different. Like I don't have the guy down the road doesn't feel the same way I do, so I can't generalize everyone and rope us all into one group like that. I don't know if everybody.
And I agree with you.
Yeah.
I 100% agree with you. What I like to do, one of the things that I've always explored, is it's the reason why I've said it. I probably haven't said it on the show. I think I've said it to Mike before. I think that most things in this world, most endeavors are faith-based endeavors. And the reason why I say that is because I think the basic ingredient, I often say that we're all hypocrites. Everybody.
Did you say faith or fate?
I said faith, F-A-I-T-H. Faith-based endeavors. And I think that we're all hypocrites. And what I mean by that is we have an inherent duplicity or dual nature, right? That comes down on the basic element. And this is not just us, supposedly all things, right, comes down to fight or flight, which are inherent contradictions. Like they don't exist in the same space. It's either fight or flight.
Right.
And that determination is based on need. And that's where human nature begins to evolve, right? Like what you deem as a need, it could even be a want, but what you deem as a need determines in a given situation which of those choices you're going to choose.
Right, I get what you're saying.
Like you're not gonna do. Hold on, real quick, Mike. You're not gonna kill. I always see these memes. Would you crush a baby rabbit's head for $1 million? And a bunch of people are like, no, I'd never do it. And I'm always like, but you would if you had to feed your kids.
Right. It depends on your need at the time.
At the time,
your way. It's like a scale. It's like, is this worth the like there's a song. It's like I keep swinging my hand. It's the Thrice song. I keep swinging my hand in a swarm of bees.
because I want honey on my table. And I don't know if it comes from an older poem or something, but it's very like metaphorical. Like they keep stinging you, but you just keep doing it because the need overweighs what the pain will involve. You know, it's I'm sure it comes.
But any other given day of the week, you're running from that swarm of bees.
Right, you wouldn't even consider it, but your hunger or your what the honey represents, it could be, you know, it could be a different. The bees are just all this is symbolic in that way.
Now, Mike, you were going to say something?
Yeah, what was I going to say?
I mean, if I could weigh in while you're trying to remember what you were going to say, I think I can kind of see what you mean about like humans being hypocritical, because it's kind of like, for example, I know that like if I was hard up for cash, like, you know, I know enough people I could probably sell weed. I wouldn't do it because like I wouldn't do it because I'm not that desperate for money that I would put my job being in a public facing job in jeopardy. But if I didn't get paid for 2 months, I might.
I've discussed exactly that with my wife. I've always said I'm so good at selling weed that if I was ever at rock bottom, it's a skill set that I have.
The hustle.
And I say this because, you know, I'm a spiritual person. I don't do anything illegal. I don't, you know what I mean? But it still is wired into me that, man, if I was at rock bottom and I had to feed my family, I know what I could do. Like, I know that I have this skill set.
So my comment was gonna be that crushing baby rabbits' heads thing is kind of funny to me because, I mean, people eat rabbits.
Yeah.
I mean, not everyone, but it's kind of like, I mean, we could go down the line and I could be like, you know.
I mean, you go, so take
PETA.
Take PETA, for instance, right? No one's just going to pick up a stick and beat a dog to death.
Unfortunately.
Well,
yeah, but
yeah,
right. But you understand what I'm saying in the hypothetical. But if you're hungry enough, you might put that dog down and have a meal to feed your kid. You're not going to let your kids die.
Right.
And so I attach it all. The reason why I say the world, our pursuits are faith-based, and it goes back to what we were talking about scientific progression, because I think even science is inexact and is faith-based. And I don't mean faith-based in the sense of the spiritual sense. I just mean faith-based, based on hope, which to me is the only thing that I think, by my own hypothesis and my own opinion, trumps fight or flight. Faith, hope. It changes the premise by which you will choose one or the other.
Well, that's what they say. It's fear or it's love. That there's only those are your only. There's no fight or there's no flight. There's fear. Your choices are made by either you're too afraid, or like let's say take a bear defending its cubs, it's gonna do whatever it takes because it loves its children. It doesn't. The fear it gets overweighed by the
you might throw yourself in front of that bear to protect your children.
I guess that comes to the same idea that you have, just with different names for the things.
Well, human nature corrupts it, though, right? Like,
right, exactly.
Now we get into this realm of we're civilized, and we have the guy who works on Wall Street who's invested all of his money in Wall Street. And okay, so for instance, right, class changes need, right? Somebody's rich, feels like their needs are different than mine, right? Circumstances changes what need is. Need becomes really superficial, right? Some guy who lives in Atlanta and decides to go shoot up, an industrial block because he just lost all his money in stocks, because his need, or what he emphasized as a need, was superficial.
And it weighs more on one side when there's less to lose from the other. Like when you have nothing left to love,
you will drive your greatest fear will overcome you, you know, or if you have nothing left to fear, you can do anything to take care of the people that you do love. Or there's many different ways to look at it.
Hence that term, like nothing to lose.
Right. That's why it does that, is because it's about, as we said before, everything comes down to binary choices. Is like it's negative or it's positive, but it's not always that easy that it's negative or it's positive. And what you fear isn't always a bad thing. Sometimes you're afraid to miss a payment, or you're afraid to lose your job. That's a good fear. You don't want to like, you know, or like people say the fear of God, or the fear of you know, but love can be a bad thing too, because you can love something so much that it destroys you. So
and you destroy things.
That's the KRS-One song.
Is it?
Love's gonna get you.
I've probably spewed a few things that I don't know where I'm getting them from, but you know, that's a good.
Love's gonna get you.
Love can make people feel like they need superficial things as well, and destroy things because of it.
And it does. Then it becomes the absence of fear, because they're blinded by the other side, and it will completely control your nature.
I mean, to zap in on that too, it's like love can turn the cliff into what seems to be an endless field of flowers. Infatuation or obsession will lead you to jump off into that field of flowers. But love, in its truest, purest form, will allow you to sit at the edge of that cliff, fearlessly appreciating those flowers for what they may or may not be, but for the inspiration and motivational drive that you leave that cliff with instead of jumping off. And it might add a lot to this by saying, like, this fear versus love conflict is an amazing subject matter for people to really kind of list out in their minds a little bit, because fear-based motivations will drive us into the binary. A love-based motivation will let us step back for a second and develop an appreciation for tertiary options, which is to say, in the simplest form, I'm not going to get mad that something didn't go my way. I'm going to be grateful for the new way to find it out. And this can lead to some dark corners still in life, like Ish is saying, where I'm not going to be mad that the world collapsed and there's no food to gather. So I'm going to appreciate the new way of turning my dog into something that we can live off of a little bit longer. And this,
well, it's interesting because you use love, and for me, I think they're interchangeable. I that's why I said faith.
Well, and that's why I'm trying to identify like the position someone comes from, because your fear of not surviving versus your love of finding another way to survive could be the difference of how long that meat from that dog lasts. Because if in fear and with emotional cognitive dissonance, you might not even process that meat, ungratefully, wasting it essentially, but using every bit of bone marrow and every little lick of meat that you can, appreciating that dog, loving that dog's life, and like truly immersing yourself in the circumstance and situation, and teaching that to your children, the family values, and maybe even sharing with another member in the community who may help you find yet another way to survive in exchange for some of your, pets. Me again, like returning.
You're going to say yet another dog.
At certain
we're now the tribe of dog eaters.
Human nature is opportunistic, is a little bit of what we're getting at.
Yes.
Oh, they say in like permaculture and bush culture and bushcrafting is make the problem your solution, and like instead of the things that upend you in life, you use them as your stepping stones to learn a new like I've got to put my roof on. I would really rather hire somebody, but financially it's just not feasible. So I have to learn this new step, and this is the process of what humanity I think really is it forces things upon you, and you learn. It's almost, I almost look at it like it's a video game. A lot of people really do believe we live in a simulation, but like you don't achieve certain levels until you take out the initiative. You can live your whole life just sitting on the couch and watching Friends reruns, or you can go out and you can experience what reality is. And I don't know. I think we're way off topic now, but
no, that's fine.
Yeah,
we're kind of philosophizing.
So if I can enter something, this has kind of been an underlying thing, but isn't often said. For me, as for some, this like spirituality thing is like part of it is coming to grips with the arrogance of man, and I think we try to separate ourselves so much and put ourselves on a pedestal, and like we have this aversion to comparing ourselves with the other creations on this planet, with the other animals, and I'm just not so sure that we should be doing that, and I'm not so sure that like we're even the smartest beings on this planet. I mean, we happen to have opposable thumbs, and we live on land, so we can fashion tools. But there's a lot of evidence to suggest that blue whales are actually have more corrugations in their brains, are smarter and form deeper emotional attachments than we do. But in a lot of spiritual communities, seeing yourself at one with nature and not putting yourself above nature is what it's about. So I just want to like throw that in there, throw that into the atmosphere, that there may be more to be learned, in comparison with other beings in nature, rather than putting ourselves above.
Right.
So
I can understand that.
I think I like that. I don't know either way. And honestly, I definitely think.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go on.
I just think you have to accept that, and you have to. That's feeling, especially now with the way we know that we're just a planet out. That's just by random chance that we're spinning around in the universe. There could be any number of other life forms out there that we would look like ants to, or we would look like dogs to,
or they might look like ants to us.
Right. We have to consider that they could be watching us. Or even if they're not, we have to consider what they would think of the society and the way we cage animals. First of all, we not only in zoos, but in our food processing centers, and we treat them as our slaves. And like look at how we've evolved. We're still working at it, but we can't even imagine doing that to a human being now. And at one time we did, and now we're going to continue as a society. We have to accept that something.
I think we can still imagine it.
Oh yeah, I know. Of course, that's the sick thing. But like your generations from now, we're going to look at things a lot differently than we look at them as we're looking right now. You know what I'm saying? As we look back then and we see our ancestors and how they were awful. A lot of them were awful people, like not on every side, like in every type of person throughout every continent. We had some brutal wars, some brutal society, but now we've hopefully have come to a more civilized way of being, but we are still have a long road ahead of us. I don't know.
So
sure.
I don't know if, because I don't disagree with anything that's been said. What I will say is I don't know if recognizing that there is something that makes us distinctly different from the other animals in the animal kingdom, something or things, drive, curiosity, faith, hope, things that cause us to critically think, to endeavor to do things, to seek out, to be Star Trek-ish, new things, new information, new creations, there is something that makes us distinctly different. I don't know if recognizing that is necessarily arrogance, and I'm not saying that's what you said, Mike, at all, because I agree with you. But I
didn't get that from what he said. I didn't
get it either.
No,
that's why I just wanted to clarify that.
I appreciate the clarification. I do think humans are arrogant, and I think there may be a reason, right?
I certainly think we're arrogant. I'm just speaking to recognizing the things that make us distinctly different. Is that arrogance?
Yeah, well, I would say of what you said, faith may be the only one I could really recognize as making us different. There are plenty of studies to show that animals have drive.
No, because I wasn't arguing with you. What I was going to speak to was the things that all of the things that I listed cause us to do that other animals don't do.
Okay.
Cause us to create, cause us to explore, cause us to, you understand what I'm saying? Not that, not at all. Yeah, that's what I was when I was listing those things. These things like cause us to do things that are so far outside of, you know, if you look at the evolution of humanity, right? These are things that we couldn't have done 9,000 years ago.
Okay. So I would still go to those things that you're listing now, and I would still find some umbrage with them. Though I would say that we can do it to a level that no one else has done it. And
that's what I'm getting at.
But I think that it's not because we're distinct. Well, we are distinct in our opposable thumbs and the fact that we're on landmass, so we're able to spread this information, write it down, and build on it from generation to generation, and that we've benefited from that after many, many generations. And so perhaps that is all the distinction that we need. Perhaps that's a great distinction. But as far as creation and exploration, other animals definitely do that as well.
But not nearly to the extent.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt. Sorry to interrupt, but I'm tired. I think I'm gonna tap out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I probably got to go too. My wife's getting mad. She said it's late. You know,
oh, okay. All right. Well, thanks for joining for the first time.
Yeah, man. Don't be strange.
No.
Well, Matt can't help that, but you know.
Yeah, don't be a stranger.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean, Emily.
How's everyone's weekend looking? Do folks know what it's looking like this weekend?
I actually end up having to do some work tomorrow for the morning, but I multitasked while we were doing this and wrote out a funny poem that reflects on some of the stuff we were saying. Maybe I'll send it to you guys as a Facebook account.
Cool.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Do that, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Read it on air.
And we'll
read it right now or another
reach out.
Read it right now on air.
Okay.
Right now? Okay, I have to hear this.
Here, I'll put it in the little chat here. Embracing the simplicity of civility. Whisper-soaked cherries saturated with secrets dancing amongst the freshly picked mint leaves. Turned into an army of effigies buried beneath the layers of a long-lost society. An amnesiac species trying to get their memories back. Reminders to remove the blinders and see things for what they really are. Remember, we are all made of stars. Particulate wavelengths spiraling out in thermodynamics with spherical formations of sound, following all paths back to source or ground. An esoteric beauty is that this terrible mystery revolves around a revolutionary way for us to share in a new kind of intimacy, like hugs that produce a certain kind of love, made to rise above all social complexities caused by noble intricacies, requesting the development of a greater sense of efficacy, embracing the simplicity of civility.
That was good. I'm giving you an internet applause.
Thank you. Yeah, that was I picked some of the stuff we were talking about, tried to fit it in there a little bit with some seeds. And yeah, it was fun.
Anyways, on that note, I'm gonna go deal with the off-screen character in the other room.
Okay. Yeah, I'm glad we got you to read that on air.
Oh yeah. Thanks for creating a safe place to share. I guess we'll catch up more tomorrow or whatever days thereafter.
Somebody wake up Raul and tell him we're all bouncing.
No, he left a while ago.
Earlier, I think.
Okay. All right,
everybody. Have a good night.